to also share to you that the Zoom is equipped with sign language interpreter. You can choose that function in the dashboard. In addition, for all of you who need, we have interpretation into English. Right. Now, this morning, we will be hosted or guided by Mr. Lukman Solehin, a researcher in BSKP from MOEC RT. Welcome, Pak Lukman. This is for, several times you become the moderator from BSKP. So it's really happy that you can join us. And now you are joining us from Bulungan, right? Yes, Ibu Lydia, correct. I'm joining from Bulungan. Okay. Therefore, we are all complete. I'll give the floor to Mr. Lukman Solihin to hold our session. Okay, thank you very much for the time, Ibu Linda, and also for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Peace be upon you all. This is Lukman Solihin. Greetings of virtue. Ladies and gentlemen, our participant for webinar. Now, this morning, we can all join so that we can have this webinar with the title, Strengthening Inclusive Education to Overcome Indonesian Students' Learning Gap. It was mentioned that this webinar is a partnership between INOVASI Indonesia and FKP or Forum, Development Policy Forum. We're going to have discussion regarding this to overcome this gap. And for all of you who join us here, that last time on December 26th, Innovasi and also Moik RT has worked together to launch a book entitled, Bounce Back Better. So this forum has a correlation to that because this book has just been launched, and it comes from that there's a learning loss and there's also discrepancy in students' learning loss that we're going to discuss further. For example, students in rural areas or in remote areas, and also regarding gender and disabilities. These are among the factors. This also contributes to learning gap. And we are going to get various informations. We have Ibu Rasita to bring this presentation. And we also have Ibu Lili Suryani from West Nusa Tenggara, the Education Office of West Nusa Tenggara. And then we will have discussions where we are going to bring several discussions. And we have Mr. Aswin Wihdiyanto that will be represented by Ibu Mega Anastasia from the Directorate of Special Education. And also we have Ibu Sa'dia from the Directorate General of Islamic Education of Mora. And then we have also Mr. Tol, the Executive Director. And also we have Ibu Budi Utami for Alternative Education or KAPAL Perempuan. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, to gain the context on the issues on this inclusiveness in education and also the condition that we need to look further, let's watch a clip of video regarding learning gap. Hopefully this video inspire us and make us understand about the context of our discussion today. Thank you.
Siapakah yang masih ingat lomba balap karung? Balap karung adalah salah satu kenangan manis untuk banyak orang. Permainan tradisional ini identik dengan keceriaan, kebersamaan, dan kegembiraan. Rasanya tak ada yang lebih menyenangkan daripada beradu kecepatan dalam karung bersama teman-teman. Buat sebagian anak, ini adalah perlombaan yang mudah. Namun, banyak juga anak-anak yang harus menghadapi rintangan untuk mencapai garis akhir. Beberapa anak akan berhasil, sementara anak yang lain akan ada yang tertinggal. Sama halnya seperti di sekolah, kesempatan yang ada tidak sama untuk semua anak. Studi kesenjangan pembelajaran atau learning gap menemukan bahwa 1 dari 2 siswa kelas 3 belum memenuhi standar yang diharapkan untuk literasi. Adapun 2 dari 3 siswa belum memenuhi standar yang diharapkan untuk numerasi. Pandemi COVID-19 membuat situasi ini semakin memburuk. Hanya dalam 1 tahun, siswa mengalami kehilangan pembelajaran atau learning loss setara dengan 6 bulan belajar dalam hal literasi dan 5 bulan belajar untuk numerasi. Anak-anak dengan latar belakang sosial ekonomi rendah dan tingkat pendidikan orang tua yang terbatas, penyandang disabilitas, dan tinggal di daerah terpencil serta kurang menguasai bahasa Indonesia mengalami kehilangan pembelajaran yang signifikan. 9 dari 10 anak penyandang disabilitas di kelas awal yang tinggal di daerah pedesaan belum mencapai kemampuan literasi yang diharapkan. Hasil belajar anak-anak yang tinggal di daerah pedesaan dan terpencil jauh lebih rendah daripada anak-anak yang tinggal di perkotaan. Belajar bukanlah lomba balap karung yang ada menang dan ada kalah. Semua anak membutuhkan dukungan yang tepat untuk mencapai potensi terbaik mereka. Asesmen diagnostik, pembelajaran berdiferensiasi, dan kurikulum yang adaptif dapat mempercepat pemulihan pembelajaran atau learning recovery. Faktor penting lainnya adalah kepemimpinan kepala sekolah dan dukungan pemerintah serta masyarakat. Bersama-sama kita dapat mengatasi tantangan dan mendukung semua anak untuk mendapatkan pendidikan yang berkualitas demi menyiapkan generasi emas Indonesia 2045.
Baik,
All
video
right.
yang sangat menginspirasi.
Now, a really inspiring video showing how our education process or how our students do not actually start from the same starting points. Therefore, the teacher needs to understand this situation. So before we go to the presentation to be done by Ibu Rasita, I have a little bit of limerick for all of you. Roses are red, violets are blue. We will go hand in hand to make a better inclusive education for me and you. Now, this is to kickstart our session. So Ibu Rasita will explain the condition on to look at the aspect of inclusiveness. Now, Ibu Rasita, the manager for Merle at INOVASI, and Ibu Rasita. How are you, Ibu Rasita?
Terima kasih.
I'm good, thank you. All right, so we can start our presentation. Yep, I have to, right? I have to. All right, great. Ibu Rasita, we have 20 minutes for you
Baik, terima
with
kasih
your presentation. Okay,
semuanya.
thank you
Ini
for the limerick.
pada dialog
Now that
atau
becomes the
anak
segue
swasta
into
pada
this
pagi hari ini.
dialogue
Selamat pagi
or this
Bapak Ibu.
discussion in this very morning. Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Kegiatan
Maybe all of you
online.
joining the session
Pagi hari ini
online.
seperti tadi disampaikan
This
oleh
morning,
Ibu
like
Rasita,
what I've been mentioned
saya
before
akan
by
sedikit
Lukman, that I'm
membawakan
going to
salah satu seri
present a little bit one of the
diskusi
series from the
pembelajaran
study
yang
that
ada
Lukman
di
has
dunia
mentioned,
online.
and this has been
Ini
launched yesterday. And this
materi
study
dan
consists
sampaikan
of
oleh
whole share is one of the
terkait
series
dengan
from
pembelajaran yang terjadi
learning gap
ketika kita mengalami
when
pandemi.
we had
Baik,
pandemic.
bisa slide berikutnya.
Okay, can we go to the
Nah,
next slide,
dalam
please?
studi
Thank you.
ini kami
Okay, in
sebetulnya
this study of learning
tujuannya
gap,
adalah untuk
the
mengetahui
purpose is to get
kondisi
to
hasil
know
belajar dan
the
pembelajaran
condition of learning
mahasiswa
results
pada
and learning
selama
situation during
pandemi.
the
Nah,
pandemic.
studi ini sendiri
Now, the study
melibatkan
itself
banyak pihak dari
involves
portal
a lot of parties. We have 40,000 respondents, but if we look at the details, it consists of more than 18,000 students from first to the third grade that in general, the comparison here has been made proportional. They were randomly selected, and this involves 612 students chosen as the sample, where the principal would then be interviewed. The first, second, and third grade teachers are interviewed, including the parents of these 18,000 students. They got interviewed. Now, these students would join literacy and numeracy tests to get to know the literacy and numeracy level during the test. Now, this survey itself was conducted uh, in 20 districts and cities in Indonesia, covering 4 provinces, among which NTB, NTT East, Java, and Kalimantan are INOVASI partners. Meanwhile, the other provinces got no intervention at all, including Jambi, Southeast Sulawesi, South Kalimantan, and North Maluku. Now, the assessment result here will be compared with the standard either in national level by using curriculum to the global standard. Now, the one that we're going to discuss in this session would be the standard related to the global standards. Meanwhile, for all of you here, if you wish to know the results regarding curriculum 2013, you can also download on the series from the books that Lukman has mentioned before, and the books can be uploaded on my party's website. And the data collection was conducted in April and May 2021. So this has been the beginning, right? So this is 1 year after the pandemic. Okay, can we go to the next slide? No, sorry, not 1 year of pandemic, but when we get into the pandemic. So we did this study as a longitudinal study for subsample. Out of this 18,000, we have schools from before the pandemic. So the data collection was done around March 2020, and then we continued in 2021, and then we see the result. Now, here from the study that we do here, or out of the overall studies, we can observe that almost 50% of the students, the third grade, hasn't met the minimum literacy. Now, the question here comes on how can we find this, that this learning results can be compared with what we call as the descriptors of the, or skill descriptors in comparison to the minimum competence. In other words, we know this as minimum competence, but this is according to global aptitude or global proficiency framework. We call it a GPF. Now, this is out of the Sustainable Development Goals or SDG. Now, here, the minimum proficiency level from GPF MPL is described the level of minimum competence expected by the students on the third grade and the third grade, either for reading and also for math. And since this is valid globally and this becomes a global reference that can be used to view our condition. Now we see that the students here are called to reach the minimum literacy standard. Based on the standard is when they reach level 3. Now, what is meant by level 3? You can look at the slide here that in level 3, students are expected to be able to read simple text independently in accordance with their age. Now, they can find information that is found explicitly. So if they can read, they can find this information because the information are provided explicitly. But they can also create conclusion. So they should be able to
Contoh
also create conclusion
integrasinya
or
dari
simple
definisi yang
interpretation
sangat
from key
basic,
ideas
dan
of
siswa
a
juga
text.
dapat
And
menuliskan
the
kata
student can also write
pada
down
saat
words
ketika
and
mendikte. Jadi
basic
jika kata-kata itu
punctuations
juga
when
basic,
they are
tugas
dictated.
dikte ya, di mana
So there's
siswa
also
itu
a
pada setiap kali
dictating
menuliskan apa yang
test
dia dengar.
where the students will hear
Next slide
a
please.
narrative and they are asked
Kalau tadi
to write
di
down
literasi
the
ya, kalau
narrative.
numerasi itu
Now,
lebih parah lagi gitu ya.
in
Kalau
numeracy, it's
tadi
even
50%
worse. While in
50%
numeracy, 50%
ini
master
numerasi
the lesson.
50%
In
siswa.
numeracy, can we go to the next
Sekarang
slide?
kita ke numerasi ya. Nah, untuk numerasi itu
Now, in
persentase yang
numeracy, the
menguasainya itu lebih
percentage
rendah lagi.
for those who can
Jadi
master are even
untuk
lower.
ini slide-nya masih
Is this lagging?
tentang
Because
literasi
the
ya. Baik.
slide is still in literacy.
Di
Okay,
sini
got it.
Bapak dan Ibu
Okay,
bisa lihat
so
ya.
here, ladies
Kalau
and
di
gentlemen, you
literasi
can
itu
view that in
dikatakan mempunyai
literacy,
kompetensi
it
minimum
is called to
kalau
fulfill the
mereka
minimum
diharapkan
competence if
kalau
they are
di
on level 3.
dia
Meanwhile, in numeracy,
berkompetensi
they're
minimum.
called to fulfill the
Kalau dia
minimum
belum
competence if
sampai pada level 4
they have reached
maka dia
level 4.
sangat
So the
baik. Nah,
color is
kita lihat untuk kelas
that
3 itu
blue or
angkanya
purplish.
hanya
Now, if we see from the third
32%.
grade, it's
Jadi
only
kita bisa bilang
32%.
hanya 2
So I
dari
can say
3
it's
siswa
only
SD
2 out of
yang
3 third
belum ya,
graders
belum
that
apa namanya, 2
still,
dari 3
2
siswanya
out of
yang
3
belum
students
memenuhi
still
kepemudaan minimal.
cannot
Jadi
fulfill
hanya
the
33%
minimum
lah kira-kira
numeracy
yang sudah
standard.
memenuhi kompetensi minimum. Apa sih yang dimaksud dengan
So
kompetensi
what is
minimum?
actually meant by
Aku
minimum
misalnya
standard
dengan
here
keadaan global ini
to
kalau
fulfill this global
apa
framework?
namanya
Now,
skill yang
if we
diharapkan
talk about
itu
the expected
diharapkan
skill
siswa sudah
here,
dapat
now the
melakukan
students are
operasi
expected
bilangan
to be
ganda dan
able
perkalian
to
hingga
conduct simple
1000
mathematical
dan juga
operation, which is
menambah
addition,
serta membagi
and
angka menjadi
also
angka
subtraction to
digit.
1000, and then to
Misalnya
be able
kalau
to divide
10
two
kali
digits with
10
one digit.
kan itu
For
3
example,
digit kan 1
10
digit gitu ya.
times
Kalau
2,
10
for
lebih
example, something
gitu
like
ya.
that.
Diharapkan dia sudah bisa
So it
melakukan
is
itu.
expected they
Tetapi juga
can
selain
do this
itu
well.
siswa diharapkan
However, the
untuk
students are
menggunakan
expected
konsep
to be able
operasi
to
matematika
use
interaksional
mathematic
untuk menyelesaikan masalah
operation to be
baik
able
itu
to solve
yang
problems in
terdiri dari
real
soal
world.
cerita lalu
So it's
bagaimana
usually it will
menerapkan
be in a
konsep-konsep
narrative
prosedur seperti
question and then
pembalikan,
how they
pengurangan,
can implement the
perkalian
concept
dan pembagian
in
untuk
real life
menyelesaikan masalah yang
to solve
diberikan
all
di
of
dalam
these
sebuah cerita.
problems in this
Kemudian dia juga diharapkan
questions.
mampu
And then they are also
mengidentifikasi karena
expected to be able to
seperti
identify and
misalnya
also to show
kalau
fractions
pakai
with the
angka itu
same
berdelapan
value.
lah gitu
Like for
misalnya.
example,
Kemudian
how can we
juga
write half
dia mampu
in
untuk
a certain
memahami
specific
konsep
way
nilai
of fraction?
berdasarkan
Okay, and so
ratusan,
they need to be understand the
ribuan,
concept of value,
satuan, dan juga memahami
and
ukuran
also
standar
they need to be
seperti
understand
panjang dan berat
to know the
jari
standard, like for example height, like for example kilogram, kilometer, and they can duration. So one, how much is 1 kg?
meter itu
How
berapa
many
gram
grams
gitu
is
ya.
one
Nah,
kg? So things like that.
selain itu juga
So
diharapkan
in
untuk
addition, they
menguasai
are
geometri
expected to
secara
be able
sederhana.
to know
Kita
simple
lihat ya
geometric
dengan
shapes.
30%
Now we see
diharapkan
that only
bisa menguasai
30% of them
kompetensi
who
ini.
have mastered this
Next slide please.
competence. Next
Nah,
slide, please.
studi kami yang
Now, our
berjudul
study
Memperkuat
entitled Bounce
ini
Back Stronger.
apa namanya
Now, this study is
berusaha untuk
we try to
melihat
to
kesenjangan
see
pembelajaran
all of
anak
this learning
apa
discrepancy
namanya
or
dibandingkan dengan
learning gap in
variasi
comparison to
nasional
the
juga global
standard
dan
for
juga
national curriculum and
dampak
global,
ketika terjadi
the
pandemi. Nah,
impact
secara
also when
khusus untuk
pandemic
seri
happens.
yang
Now, in
terkait
specific for the
yang
series
kita bahas
related
pagi di hari
to
ini
what
akan
we are
merongrong lebih
discussing
dalam
this morning, we're going to
kaitannya
see deeper
kesenjangan ini ketika
regarding
dihadapi oleh
this gap
kelompok-kelompok
if this is
yang
experienced by
memiliki
groups
latar belakang yang
with
berbeda.
different
Jadi kami akan
backgrounds.
mengelompokkan
So
lebih dalam
here
itu berdasarkan
we're going to see
gender seperti
deeper
apa, kalau
based
anak
on
laki-laki
gender.
seperti apa, anak perempuan seperti apa. Kemudian ketika
And then next,
bagi
when
anak yang menyandang disabilitas,
also
bagaimana
for those
kondisinya
with disabilities,
bila dibandingkan dengan yang
and
mengalami
if we compare this with
bukan penyandang disabilitas seperti
those who do
apa.
not have
Dan juga
disabilities,
untuk
we
aspek
compare them.
sosial yang kami
Likewise, for the
usahakan
social
mengelompok
aspect, we
siswa-siswa
focus
yang
on
bahasa ibunya
students
adalah
where the
bahasa
mother
daerah
tongue
dan
is
kurang
uh,
menguasai bahasa
where
Indonesia.
their mother tongue
Jadi
is
bisa
their
jadi
vernacular
ada
language and they do not master Indonesian.
misalnya
So there's a
kelompok
chance that maybe there
konsumen
are
yang
groups or
menguasai
group of
bahasa ibunya
community
adalah
who
bahasa
master
daerah
the
tapi tidak
mother
bermasalah
tongue
dengan bahasa Indonesia.
and they don't
Guru
have
ini
problem with Indonesian language.
biasanya
But
juga
these
tidak
groups
bermasalah
usually
untuk pembelajarannya.
we don't really
Jadi
have
tidak
problems
termasuk
in the
pada
learning
anak-anak yang
process. So we
apa namanya
focus
kurang
on
menguasai
those
bahasa
who do not really master Indonesian language because in
dan
daily life
dan
they
banyak yang
use
berkunjung
vernacular
ke
language, and
Indonesia
usually
misalnya
this is
di
in the
salah
eastern
satu
part of
provinsi
Indonesia,
yaitu
to-
di NTB
including in
gitu
West
ya.
Nusa Tenggara or in East Nusa
Nah, jadi
Tenggara.
nanti kita juga akan selain melihat
So
juga
later on,
variabel
other than
gender
looking
gitu
at
ya, kita
the
juga akan lihat
variables,
bagaimana
we will
kalau
also
kemudian
see
kelompok
what if
mahasiswa ini
these student
melakukan lagi
groups
satu
experience
variabel
not
apa
only
saja. Jadi
one
dia
pronouns factor,
misalnya
but for example,
di sini kita lihat anak laki-laki lebih rentan, tapi
we
kalau
see
dia
that
laki-laki
boys are
di
more prone,
desa
but
seperti
if they
apa,
live in the
kemudian
village, what will
di
happen?
kota seperti
If they
apa.
live
Nah,
in urban area,
interseksionality
what will
dari
happen?
aspek-aspek
This
ini juga diatur dalam
intersectionality of these
ketentuan.
aspects
Jadi kalau
can be
diibaratkan kita kayak lihat
used
mikroskop gitu ya.
deeper, so
Jadi
it's like
kita
in the
kita pecah-pecah
microscopic
lagi nih
view,
elemen-elemennya sehingga kita bisa lebih
and
membedakan
we
lebih
can
detail
see
lagi.
in the
Nah,
elements, so we
karena
can see in the
lagi-lagi
details.
studi kami ini menemukan bahwa kesenjangannya akan
So
semakin
we
lebar
see
ketika
the gap will be bigger
kelompok-kelompok ini kemudian memiliki lebih dari
when these
satu
groups have
pronoun
more than
atau
one pronunciation factor.
apa namanya ini yang nanti kita lihat oh ternyata dampak pandeminya juga jadi lebar banget gitu ya
So
ketika
the pandemic will become
sebelum-sebelumnya saja
bigger.
sudah terjadi kesenjangan di antara mereka. Nah, ketika pandemi ini menjadi
Now, during the
lebih
pandemic,
terlihat lagi.
this will become even more
Next slide
severe.
please.
Now, next slide, please.
Nah, nanti di slide berikutnya
Okay, now on the next slide,
ditampilkan ya
we're
seperti apa
going
sih
to
apa
see
namanya kondisi kerentanan itu
the
seperti apa.
proneness
Kalau
condition.
dari segi kesimpulannya
Now,
nih Bapak dan Ibu
from
bisa
the
dilihat ya,
conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, as you can
kita
see
melihat
here,
siswa
we see
laki-laki,
that
kemudian kalau siswa
boy
perempuan itu
students
di
or male
desa,
students, and if they live in
kemudian
the
siswa
rural
yang
areas,
bahasa
and
daerah
then
dan
students with
siswa yang
disabilities, and
bahasa
also
ibunya adalah bahasa
students whose
daerah
mother
atau
tongue
bahasa
is
Indonesia,
vernacular language, and if
itu
they don't
cenderung
master Indonesian
lebih
language,
rentan ya
they tend
dibandingkan
to become
siswa yang
more prone
atau
in
siswa-siswa yang
comparison to
yang
female
tinggal di
students
perkotaan,
or those who
siswa yang
live in
tidak
urban
memiliki
areas,
disabilitas dan
or those
siswa
who
yang
do not
memang
have disabilities,
bahasa
and
ibunya
also
itu
those whose
mata
mother
tongue-nya bukan
tongue
bahasa daerah sehingga
is
dia memang
not
sangat
their
menguasai bahasa Indonesia. Nah,
vernacular
kita
language,
melihat
so they master
berdasarkan
Indonesian language well.
apa
Now,
namanya
if we observe based
elevasi
on
ya,
the
ini
percentage here,
masing-masing anak
now
laki-laki yang
this is the
tidak
percentage of
mencapai
boys who
tingkat
do not
minimum
reach
literasi
this
berdasarkan tancap ini
minimum
boleh
literacy
jadi
based on the
besarnya
SDG
dari
standards,
perempuan.
they are actually bigger
Kalau laki-laki
than the
ini 59%
boys. So if
tidak menguasai
girls, it's like
belum
50,
mencapai,
uh,
sementara anak perempuan
s-
angkanya
uh,
51%. Nah,
60%, while for
kalau
girls it's
berdasarkan lokasi
51%, as
kita lihat
seen
lebih
on
besar
the
lagi nih
uh,
disparitasnya ya.
screen
Anak-anak
here. So
laki-laki itu
16% and 59%.
perempuan
Now,
begitu ya
if we look further
dari
here,
pedesaan
if they live
kemudian
in
tidak
urban or rural areas,
menguasai kompetensi
then
minimum
they
berdasarkan
do not have the
SDG
minimum standard
itu
based on
angkanya
SDG,
75%,
where it is
sementara kalau
75%
di apa
if
namanya
it's based on
di
location, and
perkotaan
if
itu
they live
angkanya
in rural areas,
55%.
then
Penjelasan
the figure
kenapa
will
sih
be
kalau
56%.
di
What is
pedesaan itu
the
menjadi
explanation why,
mereka
if they live in the
memang
village, they are more
dasarnya
prone? Now, this is usually because
kondisi di pedesaan apalagi
the
di pedesaan
condition
itu
in the
memang
village, especially
memiliki akses
in
yang
the
lebih sedikit
uh,
ya ke sumber daya
rural
dan
areas, they
juga
have much
ke
resources
bantuan-bantuan
and
profesional
also
bisa
to various
mengakses misalnya dari
professional
studi kami
aid
juga ya.
that they can
Kemudian
access. This is also the finding from
next
our studies.
biasanya
And
juga
the next,
cenderung
usually the
memiliki
teachers tend
kualifikasi yang
to have
lebih rendah karena memang mereka juga
lower
terbatas
qualification
informasinya
because they also have limited
terbatas
information. They
mengakses
have limited
pembelajaran gitu ya
uh,
dibandingkan mereka yang di
access
apa
to
namanya di
get
perkotaan. Nah,
all of
biasanya
these learning
juga
materials in
bahasanya
comparison to
juga
those living in the urban areas. And then
dengan
others,
bahasanya
usually they use
tidak ada masalah ya,
uh,
hanya kemudian
vernacular language or
bahasa
local
Indonesia
language.
juga
Now
yang
that's
menjadi
actually not a problem,
terbatas.
but
Nah,
then
yang
there's a
kedua
problem in their Indonesian
problematisasi
language
yang kita
mastery.
lihat lagi adalah
Now, what
biasanya tidak
creates
menjadi
everything even more
lebih
difficult
rata
is
lagi
when they live in
potensi
rural
latar
or remote
belakang
areas, then
keluarga
their
itu juga terbatas.
family background
Tempat
would
tinggal
also
juga
be limited. Oh,
boleh
okay, five
kebayang
minutes
kalau
more.
begitu.
Okay, so
Eh,
let me just educate,
Kalau
make
kemudian
it
kita lihat
fast.
dengan
Okay,
anak-anak yang
now,
menyandang
if
apa
we
disabilitas
see
ya,
students with
itu
disabilities, for
mereka yang tidak
example,
mencapai
now
kompetensi minimum
those who do
sampai
not
lebih
reach
dari
the minimum
80%.
competence can
Sementara
be
kalau
more than
penyandang disabilitas
uh,
angkanya 60%.
80%,
Itu
while without
pencapaian
disabilities, the figure is
disabilitas.
approximately
Dan kalau menggunakan bahasa daerah
60%. So if they use
50%, bahasa
vernacular
Indonesia
language, it will
50%,
go 68%.
59%.
If they
Makanya saya
use
agak sedikit nggak
Indonesian
bisa
language,
nyebut ini.
then it's
Nah,
59%.
nah
Okay,
di slide
next slide. I
berikutnya
need to
kita
be
bisa
fast.
melihat
On the
bahwa
next slide, we can see
faktor
that
kerentanannya. Nah,
actually the
kemudian sama
proneness
seperti tadi,
factor is related one another. Students with multi-proneness will have the potential to get
Nah, di sini kita
like
bisa lihat
or
presentasi
lower
siswa yang
uh,
mencapai
results.
tingkat
Now we see the
ketertinggalan
students who do not reach
dalam
minimum
SDG ya, yang
literacy
tidak bisa
based on
dicapai oleh
SDG,
tiga tadi yang
meaning
seperti
they
yang
cannot reach
dibahas.
level 3
Jadi
from the
kalau
standard that we have
perempuan
mentioned
ada
before. For
59%, kalau
girls, we have
anak laki-laki
59%. For
Mas sudah
boys, it will
tahu
be
ya tadi
69%. We
ada
know this,
peningkatan.
that
Nah,
boys are more
kemudian kalau
prone.
perempuan ini
However, for the
lebih berat
girls
lagi.
here, if we
Jadi
dissect
kalau
even
siswa
deeper,
perempuan
what about
dia
if we talk
rata-rata
about girl students
nah, kita
living
di
in
sini
urban
bisa
areas?
tahu bahwa
If we
kalau
look at the
dia di
slide, we can
pedesaan
see that if
tidak
they live
mencapai
in city level, those who
50%.
do not reach if
Tapi kalau dia tinggal di
uh,
pedesaan, angkanya hampir 70%.
50
Jadi baru pada sama-sama
if
perempuan
they
ya,
live
cuma
in a
beda
city,
rasnya aja
it
ya.
will be 50%,
Nah,
but in rural
kalau
areas,
dia
it will be
siswa perempuan
69%. Now,
tinggal di
if
pedesaan,
they
dia
are
tidak bisa
girl
menikah,
students, they live
angkanya
in a city and they
hampir
have
meningkat
disabilities,
73%.
then it will be
Kalau laki-laki dan
73%. If they
disabilitas
don't have
di bawah
disabilities, it will be
50%,
below
angkanya
50%
55%.
or almost
Ya benar
50%.
ya. Nah,
Now we
sekarang
can
kita lihat
see the
laki-laki
huge
dan
difference here.
disabilitas
Now
apakah
let's see
sama nih kira-kira
for boys, I think
analisisnya.
it's pretty much the same. The
Nah,
analysis would
laki-laki
be the same.
tingkat
For
perkotaan
boy students, if they live in
disabilitas
city,
itu
in
lebih
comparison to living in rural
meningkat kalau
area,
di
it
pedesaan
is
itu
even more
ada
devastating. Those living in
80% yang
rural
tidak
areas,
bisa
it
pada
will
saat minimum.
80% of them do
Kalau
not
anak
reach the
laki-laki
minimum
tadi
competence. If
kemudian
they then
disabilitas,
live
ada
in,
disabilitas,
if they have
itu lebih
disabilities,
berat
then
lagi.
it will
91%
become
untuk anak laki-laki tinggal di pedesaan dan menyandang
uh,
disabilitas itu hampir semuanya lah
79%.
saya mau bilang ya
And
90%
if they have
yang
disabilities,
mengalami
it's
limitasi. Nah,
90%.
kira-kira ini hasil yang kita
Now,
peroleh kalau
this is the
dibandingkan dengan
results
kacamata
that we
yayasan
got
sendiri.
if we
Next
use a
slide.
more sensitive perspective. Next slide,
Nah,
please.
kalau perempuan dan
Okay.
laki-laki
Now, for
sebetulnya
men
ada
and women,
banyak catatan
actually,
yang
they
sudah
are,
kita
I mean,
ketahui.
if we talk about
Kalau
pandemic,
laki-laki
both
cenderung
of them
lemah
are
dari
impacted.
hasil awal,
For
itulah
the boys
hasilnya
from the
rahasia.
initial, the
Ketiga,
literacy and
kalau
numeracy, they got
perempuan
left behind.
itu ketika
Meanwhile,
pandemi
for the girls
nilainya
during the
lebih besar
pandemic,
dibandingkan
they
sebelum
have a lot
pandemi.
of more
Tidak ada
losing in
jawaban yang
comparison to
pasti,
boys.
tapi kami
There's no
menganalisis
certain
berdasarkan
answers, but we assume, and this is based
hasil
on
temuan yang lain bahwa
the
ketika
other
pandemi
findings, that
anak
in the
perempuan
context of
beban
pandemic,
kerja domestiknya
then
lebih
they
banyak
have
daripada
more
laki-laki.
domestic loads for
Next slide
girls
please.
in comparison to boys. Next
Nah,
slide, please.
ini sebetulnya terus gimana nih?
Now, then the
Kan
question is,
ini
what can we
sebetulnya
do? But actually, here
apa namanya sudah ada beberapa inisiatif
there
yang
have been
dilakukan
some initiatives that we
Alternatif
have
yang
done
bisa membantu
that
kita untuk
actually this
apa
can
namanya
help
untuk
us
membantu
to
atau mengakomodasi ya.
get to know, to
Mereka itu
understand,
sebenarnya
or to
memiliki hak yang
accommodate
sama
them.
dengan
Actually, have
anak-anak yang
equal
lain.
rights
Hanya mereka
with other
memiliki
students,
kebutuhan
but
yang berbeda dan
they have
kebutuhan yang berbeda ini
specific needs,
yang
and these
perlu
specific needs is
diakomodasi oleh
something that
berbagai pihak
we need to
dari
accommodate by various
jaringan
parties,
sekolah,
including from the
kemudian di sekolah
government
dan
policies
sebagainya. Nah,
or
waktu
schools and
saya
so
tinggal
on
satu
and so
menit,
forth.
ini slide-nya
Now,
saya
since I only have
saya
1 minute
skip
left,
aja yang ini,
then I
bisa
will just
bergeser ke
skip
slide
this
berikutnya.
and we can continue to the next
Nah,
slide.
di gambar ini
Okay, now in this
Bapak dan Ibu
picture,
bisa
ladies and
lihat slide
geramen,
satu
you can see
contoh
here that
praktis yang
one
sudah
of the
dilakukan
practical
ini adalah
examples that have
bagaimana
been done
melakukan
is how
pembelajaran
the
yang
teachers
berbeda-beda.
would
Kalau
do
tadi Pak
differentiated
Tolhas
learning.
menyebutkan ini
The
dengan
minister have also mentioned this
pembelajaran
so that the
at the
teacher
right
can
level
do
gitu ya. Nah,
so
di
should do
sini ada
teaching at the
gambaran
right
bagaimana
level. So
kemudian
here
guru
we
pertama
have
bisa
pictures
membantu
showing that
melakukan
to be able
assessment
to
ya,
do
di
it, the
mana
teacher
kita
should
tahu
be
kalau di
able to do
aplikasi
assessment,
ini
right?
ada gambarnya
They need to
bagaimana
be able to do assessment.
melakukan
So this is
assessment
where the
pada
teachers would do
siswa,
assessment by
evaluasi yang dibahas,
individuals, and then
dikerjakan
they would
bersama-sama
work on
dengan
the
orang
results, and
tua,
then
dan kemudian
together with other
petanya bisa
teachers, and
dikeluarkan
then
oleh anak yang
they can have,
menguasai
the
satu level
mapping.
atau
So
misalnya
who can
huruf
master,
apa
let's
di
say,
suku
on the
KBBI
letters
ini.
level or in the
Next slide
syllable
please.
level. Next slide, please.
Nah, kemudian setelah guru bisa katakanlah menemukan petanya, kemudian dia bisa melakukan pembelajaran yang sesuai
After they
dengan
have mapped, they can
termasuk
make,
ketika ada ini
proper
adalah
teaching, including
disabilitas.
if
Jadi
these
memang ini
students have
disesuaikan
disabilities and they
sesuai
have
dengan mereka.
specific needs.
Nah, ini ada
So we
satu
cannot make
slide
it the
yang
same. Now, this is one of the
guru
slides
mengajarkan
when one of the
mendampingi
teacher
secara khusus anak yang sangat sulit
assist
bicara.
students or
Ya,
specific
ada
students who have
beberapa
difficulties
slide saja
in
sebelum
reading. I'll make
yang
it fast. Can I
lebih
have one more extra
detail
minute?
untuk
Okay,
membaca
thank you, Lukman.
rekomendasinya.
Only two with the
Next slide
recommendation.
please.
Okay, next slide, please.
Nah, ada beberapa rekomendasi yang kita
There are
sampaikan
some
mungkin
recommendations that I have here,
Kemendikbud
and some from
Suryani bisa
WorkRT. You
menambahkan.
can add from
Merekomendasikan
WorkRT.
untuk
So we
dibentuknya
recommend to
implementasi
strengthen
kebijakan
the
yang
implementation of
mengatur
policy
informasi
and
pembelajaran
various
anak yang
transformational
fokus pada
programs with the
wilayah-wilayah yang
focus on
seperti
various
yang tadi
areas
dibahas
in
tadi ya,
remote
kebutuhan
areas.
khusus itu
Now, the special support is required by those who are actually or really, really left behind. And this can be done through policy development and programs, including for early education or PAUD, because PAUD has a huge impact on competence mastery. And then access development and also the development for teachers capacity. This has been ongoing. And then also what's also important here is the role of subnational government, the district government, in this case, the government in the village. And now here, we recommend them to support the implementation of education transformation with a policy and program to help teachers to implement this, including to ensure the availability of supports for vulnerable groups, especially in the village level. And we don't want them to be near with the office. We need to pay attention to those living in remote areas. And then in the provincial level, this is also to strengthen the partnership. We have discussed this, and this cannot be solved alone. We need the collaboration from all parties, including from the government and also parents. I have been far off my time. Unfortunately, I need to close my presentation a little bit too fast, but thank you. There are some slides that I need to pass. Apologies to that. So I give the floor back to Bapak Lukman. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much, Ibu Rasita, and hopefully all of you and everyone joining this seminar have got the information from Ibu Rasita. There are some important points here related to the findings here where, you know, we see various aspects, like for example, genders, and then the state of having disabilities, or and then social and families. This affects the students, and also this creates double burden here. So they have certain component, and then it was said that in fact there are some examples can become our inspiration that first teachers need to conduct assessment to identify students condition, to give the right intervention, to give the right assistance, so that all of the students can get the right assistance. And there also, we need asymmetric assistance from central government and also the collaboration with the subnational government in terms of the recommendation. Now, I think this is really interesting. Moving on, I don't want to take a lot of your time. Let's go to Ibu Lili Suryani from Nusa Tenggara Education Office. Hello, Ibu Lili. Hello. Okay, how are you, Ibu Lili? I'm good, thank you. Okay, Ibu Lili, you will share this presentation regarding the program of inclusive education in West Nusa Tenggara Province. Ibu Lili, I give the floor to you 20 minutes from now. Thank you. Over to you. Can you help me with the slide, please? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, peace be upon you all. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, hello. Our from INOVASI and also the participant of this webinar today. I hope that all of us in good condition representing the office or the education office. I'm going to share the activities regarding inclusive education in East Nusa Tenggara Province. Next slide, please. Now, why inclusive education becomes the main priority for the Provincial Education Office of West Nusa Tenggara? First, there's a meta-analysis back in 2020 done by several education foundations. We have Gagas, we have also Islamic University, and we have also child protection in 5 components. So for those experiencing difficulties or the heaviest difficulties, it shows that students with disabilities are among those with low, those experiencing difficulties in learning. Number two, now the data from the number and then also the examination, it's not sufficient. Therefore, there is no proper support for students with disabilities. Now this happens because the education office do not have uh, these data, and also what kind of a functional challenges that they have, and also the spread. And this has, hindered us to make various support for inclusive study. Next, the revision has accommodated all of the changes and also the paradigm of inclusive education. They only focus on all of the challenges. Now, this terminology is used. So in special schools, they use the word tuna, which means without. So if we see that these students, you know, are considered to have lacking or flaw, so they think that they need to be cured, they need to be healed, and the problem, more problem is they need to be rehabilitated. So meanwhile, the paradigm or the new paradigm that we have now is that actually the school itself that needs to give access to them, to give assistance to them, and to give all facilities for students with disabilities to gain access. Therefore, they get, the best education access based on what they need. The fourth part here is the preparedness of regular schools. So we know that learning environment relates to the teachers, the principals, the parents' preparedness, where they tend to refuse students with disabilities to go to their schools. This happens a lot, and maybe there's a little bit of story here that, you know, we have students with cerebral palsy, and they go to one of the public schools in our place, and this happens. Now, this student got bullied by other students, and this student experienced tantrum. And then the funny thing is, the parent asked the parents to remove the student to go to another school because the student is considered to disrupt. No, this actually violates a lot of rights, but due to the pressure from the principal, we have tried to do the best here. Well, actually, the one that needs to, the one that needs, or the bully is the one that needs to be, to be treated. But, in the end, the student with CB should go to another school. Now, this is what happens when the learning environment in a regular school or public school are not ready to accept this kind of students. And next, the teachers still do not understand how to treat students with disabilities in regular schools. For example, they need additional time to learn, and then they also need learning assistance aid, and also the, seating placement. For example, students with the visual needs, they need to be placed to be close to the window. For example, they need to be close, and those with speaking disabilities, they need to be put near the teachers up front, while in the village area especially, these students actually sit on the back part in the classroom. This is what happens. And then human resources. Now, the human resources, this is also related to the classroom teachers because they do have the knowledge, and they have minimum knowledge and minimum skills in managing students with special needs. Now, this is what happens. And then next slide, what can we do, or what have we done? Now, we have developed a system on data collection. Can you show my dashboard? Or you can just click Ibu Lily. Okay, so what have we done so far? Because the problem is in data. Now the data is the reference to make a program. So therefore, we develop data collection method, and data information service for students with disabilities done in an online and integrated manner. We call it as inclusive education dashboard. And then there's also identification instrument for functional challenges. Now, this is the what we have done. Now, this is the dissemination from students with special needs in West Nusa Tenggara. Now, this is done only on several cities and districts. There are some highlighted parts here, green, red, and yellow. So if it's green, then the number is less, and while yellow is in the medium level, which is 5 to 10%. And the one that we considered a lot is, as you can see here, in Bima. Now, the figure will be around 10% of students with special needs in those areas. Next slide. Right. Now, what we do next is we facilitate dashboard testing with this functional learning instrument as a data collection instrument for data collection, especially on the districts where we check that there are innovation programs. If I'm not mistaken, there are 4 districts. Now, over here, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this is the display of identification of functional challenges in the dashboard. So in the dashboard itself, there is a menu that can be filled out by the teachers to select what kind of a challenge that a student experience or a school experience. Now, this is for the students supposedly to have learning challenges. So not for all students. Like for example, we have visual disabilities here, and if they click and there are students with functional challenge, then they will have options there. And based on the supervisor, for example, if they cannot see clearly from X mirror, so they can click one or more from their observation. Now, there are 9 functional challenges here that we have put in the dashboard. So when the students are considered not to have functional challenge, then the teacher can go directly to the next slide. For example, if they have speaking uh, challenge, and then if they have uh, soft motoric skill challenge and dyslexia and so on and so forth, there are options where in the end you will get this identification result. So there will be identification results where the teachers conduct this data input, and there we can see that the identification result here for students with this challenge, then they have, either light or severe problem. So this comes back to the teacher's observation. Next, we can also see the supports that can be given. So what can the teachers do? Next slide. Now, what we do here is from the education office from West Nusa Tenggara have done roadmap of inclusive education back in 2023. And we have prepared this for 5 months. So we have had our roadmap for the next 5 years from 2023 all the way to 2027. In 2023, we conduct system reinforcement for regulation. And here we have also application and so on and so forth. And then in 2024, we have conducted competence and priority, like for example, training for teachers and principals, and also the preparation for priority programs in inclusive education. So we plan to do it in 2024. And then in 2025, we have human resource competence and also service dissemination. We keep on doing this, and we focus on this. So here in the roadmap, we target X% all the way for every year. We have progress improvement for teachers in regular schools. And then in 2026, we do quality improvement, and then also like in reference schools that will be there in the district level, and then there's also program improvement. It'll be on 2026, and in 2027 we will have learning quality dissemination and also excellent programs, including all of this as you can see on the screen. And then next, for vocational school and also for business, and also and the dissemination of scholarship for students with special needs. That will be our target for 2027. Next slide, please. Now, this is what we have done so far, which is to make a team or support system, or we call it as PSPI, or Center for Source of Education and Inclusive Education, or PSPI. We have OPDs here or from the units. We also work with the Ministry of Religious Affairs because students with disabilities, they are also there in various schools and also in Pesantren. And here we have also involved organizations, including professional organizations. Next. So for all of the efforts that we have known so far in West Nusa Tenggara regarding LPTK or the Teachers Institute, Wadi University has built disability service centers along with the National Commission of Disabilities of Indonesia as an effort to conduct the best to fulfill education needs for students with disabilities. And then next, there's also inclusive education laboratory in Mataram University to support the understanding of inclusive education at FKIP Unram. And then also we have also Win Win Care here. So they have the commitment to share education for students with disabilities. For higher education, we have also others. We have also Garkatin for the deaf, and also we have Lidi Foundation as well. Next, we also conduct revision from the previous policy. We have governor's instruction number 2 of 2016, amended by regulation number 78 of 2022 regarding inclusive education. While on the previous version, they still used the word tuna or without. And what changed here from our development, this has changed because the provincial also handles high school and vocational school, meanwhile the district handles primary school. So we uh, did some revisions, and we tried our best so that the understanding on inclusive education, and this is our responsibilities. Meanwhile, we cannot use that word anymore because no matter what, these students are under the district level. Next slide. Now, to improve learning quality for students with special needs in regular schools. Now, first here is we conduct several training for regular uh, classes and to refresh the students. Now, for your information, we have conducted training for special teachers of approximately 3 days for special teachers. And those that we train are those who have been trained by the Directorate of GTK. And after we recap, there are 100 and more teachers who have been trained since 2020 all the way to 2023 trained by the Directorate of GPK. So from the Directorate of GPK, they have conducted trainings to fulfill the teachers of GPK throughout Indonesia. Out of these teachers, we have trained around 49 teachers in West Nusa Tenggara province from various levels, and we adjust with the budget we have. And the next is to strengthen the collaboration, including students with special needs in primary school and also in madrasah, and also to increase the competence regarding inclusive education, and then also next to build disability service units in district level. At the moment, we are actually preparing MOU, but there are still some problems regarding the MOU agreement. Maybe there will be some more strategies that we conduct, including MOU in the provincial level in terms of this education.
Bu Lili 2 menit lagi, 2,5 menit sih. Iya.
Ibu Lily, 2 more minutes.
Ya.
Okay. Next is the reinforcement of collaboration to push various curriculum development of LGBTQ responsive to all of the needs. And then from the training, ladies and gentlemen, we identify that our colleagues from GPK, they have known about this basic inclusive education. So what we share here is more on curriculum accommodation and also the learning process, and then also the assessment for students with special needs, and then also the report for learning results, and then also the syllabus they are taught, not by us, but from our team, from the professionals under the director to become the international keynote speaker. So from here, they have implemented all of this inclusive education to provide the understanding for future teachers throughout all study programs. And then next is we push collaboration of regular and special schools. Now, these collaborations have been done quite a lot, but it's not written in our program. Now, the collaboration is in the form of MOU with a regular school to solve all of these problems of students with special needs. I think that's all from me. Thank you. Okay, the priorities in the future. Now, the priorities in the future is to ensure the data for availability, and then of course these dashboards will be updated every 6 months. And then also we facilitate technical support for principals and teachers and also supervisors sustainably. And this is done in education, including in primary school all the way to high school, and then also to prepare the students for students with disabilities in regular school. Now, in the end, we will ask PSPI to help make RT to prepare with the book because we need to support the inclusive education. I think that's all that I can share. Thank you very much.
Baik. Nah, kurang 3 detik saja Bu Lili, jadi pas sekali
Kelebihan ya,
presentasinya. Tidak, malah kurang 3 detik tadi malah. Terima kasih sudah menyampaikan presentasi yang sangat menginspirasi saya kira, karena
Thank you
pertama
for the presentation because not many areas actually would have this kind of a dashboard regarding how the condition of their students with disabilities in each schools. West Nusa Tenggara, I think, is a good example on how to develop the system and also how to conduct this data collection, including forming a team and also to collaborate and to coordinate with the sub-national government and also the city government, and also there's a collaboration for visiting teachers and also collaboration with LPTK regarding the curriculum so that all of the teachers teaching would come to understand the condition of all of the students with disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the next session. those in the webinar. Kindly wait if you have any questions, but also we the floor to ask through the Q&A session, and I believe that all of the keynote, uh, all of you, ladies and gentlemen, can share this. And if it's possible, if you need to ask verbally, I'll give you the floor. After all of the discussants will share, and you can share information to all of us. I'll give the floor to Ibu Mika Anastasia. She's the leader of INOVASI team for learning transformation, representing Pak Aswin, Ibu Mika. Ibu Mika.
Selamat siang, Pak Lukman.
Halo Ibu Mika. Halo Pak Lukman. Okay, Ibu Mika, over to you. Maybe 10 minutes.
Baik, terima kasih,
Over
Pak.
to you, Ibu Mika.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Oh, thank you,
wabarakatuh.
everyone. Hello, peace be upon you all.
Om
Hello,
Swastiastu,
greetings of
Namo Buddhaya,
virtue
Kebajikan, Rahayu. Yang saya hormati Bapak Lukman
to the Honorable Mr. Lukman from BSKP
Damanik dari Yayasan Wahana Inklusif Indonesia,
and also from Wahana
Utami dari
Inklusif,
Institut Lingkaran Pendidikan
and also from Institut Lingkaran Alternatif, and also Ibu Saadia from Mora, Ibu Rasita Purba from INOVASI as our keynote speaker. I thank you very much for the presentation. It's really useful. And also Ibu Lili Suryani from the Provincial Education Office of West Nusa Tenggara. So first off, I'd like to say thank you to INOVASI for initiating this and strengthening inclusive education to overcome problems for Indonesian students. And like what we have all known, we see how huge the impact of pandemic is to our education. However, the government has been working to work on learning loss as a part of the pandemic. Next, our utmost appreciation for West Nusa Tenggara Province for issuing this governor's instruction regarding inclusive education that has been amended with Governor's Regulation number 7 and 8. So we expect that this regulation can be implemented. Now, this dissemination and various initiative during the pandemic, especially for the prone community, this is something interesting where we in MOEC we have conducted the strategy on and we opened the commitment for students with special needs. And then, as mentioned before by Ibu Rasita, for the prone communities that becomes based on the result from university and also with various efforts that have been done by the teachers to overcome this learning loss. And from MOEC RT, we have also issued a policy for MOEC RT number 48 of 2023 for proper accommodation for students with disabilities, and this is given to early education, middle education, and higher education. Now, this is also to answer the recommendation from Ibu Rasita that for the government from the directorate from WEC-RT have also got the policy regarding this. And this regulation has, driven the government either in the subnational level or in the village level to create a proper accommodation. Now, for this, we believe that in the subnational government, where INOVASI can take part to support MOEC RT in supervision or any other forms of assistance regarding the implementation of MOEC RT education's implementation. Now, regarding this quality, for the reinforcement of capacity, as mentioned before by Ibu Lili and Ibu Rasita Purba. Now, one of the focus or one of the main point here is the human resource. For the human resource here, including what Ibu Lili has mentioned, and now the roadmap for inclusive education
Dinas Pendidikan Provinsi NTB itu adalah
from the provincial level,
peningkatan
one of which is
kompetensi dan
the
kapasitas dari SDM yang
strengthening
dilakukan
of the
melalui
human
pelatihan
resources
seperti
by
itu.
having various trainings. Now,
Direktorat PMPK sendiri
for
kami
the Directorate of
Bapak
PMPK,
Direktur Jenderal
we, under the
Pendidikan
Directorate
Tinggi dan
General,
Sarjana Pendidikan Menengah kami juga memiliki
we have
program
also
memiliki
a program.
upaya
We have a
atau
program, or we have
agar
our efforts to
meningkatkan
be able to
pembinaan akan
improve the need
guru
of
pendidikan khusus yang
teachers
belum memiliki latar atau tidak
for
menjamur
those
latar
who do
belakang
not
pendidikan
have
khusus. Saat ini kami sedang
specific
bertemu
special education
terkait
background.
dengan
And we
GTK
are
dan
trying our best to
beberapa
work with
praktisi.
teachers of
Terakhir
special
salah
needs,
satunya juga
with
adalah
all of the
Inovasi.
practitioners, including from
Kami
INOVASI,
sedang menyusun
where
untuk
here we
bagaimana
are trying our best
suatu mekanisme
to
pelatihan
make
meningkat
a certain
kompetensi
mechanism
bagi
to
guru-guru
improve this
yang punya
mechanism for
latar belakang
teachers
pendidikan khusus
without
untuk dapat
special education background to be able
berlatih secara mandiri dan itu
to
nanti akan
train
kami kembangkan
independently,
sesuai dengan
and we're going to develop this in line
pendidikan
with
merdeka belajar yang
the
telah
policy of
diamanatkan oleh
Merdeka
Kementerian
Belajar that has been set
Ristek,
by
Ristek dan
MOEG
Teknologi
RT,
melalui salah satu
where
platform
among
digital
which it
platform
goes through our
belajar.
digital platform
Jadi
of
ini salah
Merdeka
satu
Mengajar.
upaya
And this is one of our
dari
efforts
Kementerian
from
Pendidikan,
the ministry
Kebudayaan, Riset dan Teknologi khususnya bagi
from MOEG RT,
dari Direktorat Pengabdian
especially
Masyarakat dan
in the
Adat
Directorate
Khusus.
of Community Education and Special
Bapak
Education.
Ibu,
Now, ladies and gentlemen,
untuk penguatan
now to strengthen
pendidikan inklusif bagi
inclusive
peserta baik
education
pemerintah daerah baik itu
for
pemerintah
the
kabupaten
subnational government, either for
kami
the
melakukan
city or
kami sedang
districts, from our
melaksanakan
experience, we have done this
koordinasi
coordination.
banyak pemerintah kabupaten
We
kota
see a lot
yang
from the
belum
city
sadar
government
atau
that
belum paham
are
tentang
not yet aware
pendidikan inklusif.
regarding
Banyak dari
safe
mereka
education. A lot from
beranggapan
them
bahwa
who
pendidikan
assume
inklusif
or
termasuk
think that inclusive
seluruh anak-anak yang
education,
berkebutuhan khusus
among which
merupakan
is for
kewenangan
students with
atau
special
tanggung jawab
needs,
dari
that will be the authority or the
pemerintah
responsibility of
provinsi.
the provincial
Jadi mereka
government.
belum aware dan bahkan
And
menyatakan bahwa
so
ini
here they
kewenangan
see that
daerah
this is
seperti itu.
not
Dan beberapa
with
ada
them,
beberapa
and there are
kendala
various problems or
kurang peduli
obstacles
lapangan
here,
seperti yang disampaikan oleh Ibu Lili
like what Ibu Lili
dan
has
juga
mentioned.
sudah beberapa
Now,
kali
this
kami
is
menyampaikan
also
bahwa
something that we have
beberapa
mentioned, that
satuan
there are
pendidikan
some
reguler yang
regular
tidak menerima
educations that
anak-anak
do
berkebutuhan
not
khusus
accept students
karena
with
beberapa
special needs
berbagai
due
macam
to,
berbagai macam
I
hal
mean,
salah
and this
satunya
is due to
ketidaksiapan
various
kapasitas
reasons,
pendidikan tersebut.
among which is the
Ini
unpreparedness of
telah
that
jembatani kita
education
juga
is
untuk
education institutions. Now, this is where we try to bridge, or we
mencari
try
solusi
to
dan
find the best solutions,
titik tengahnya seperti apa
and
karena
we try to
pada saat
find the middle
ini
ground,
di
because at the
JPPD
moment in the
dalam
Directorate
kepemimpinan
General
Kemendikbud
of Early Childhood
kami memiliki
Education, we have
kelompok kerja yang
some kind of a working group that
dilaksanakan secara lintas direktorat.
we have done
Jadi
across directory.
pendidikan inklusif ini tidak
So this
menjadi
inclusive education
tugas
is no
utama
longer
tapi tugas
our main
delegasi
focus
atau
or
tugas dari direktorat
just the task
PMPK yang menangani
of
pendidikan khusus
PNPK
tapi juga sudah
handling this,
menjadi
but this has also become
fokus juga bagi direktorat
the
lainnya
focus
yaitu
on other
seperti direktorat PAUD,
directorates,
SD,
including
SMP,
PAUD or early education,
SMA
primary school, junior high school, and high
untuk
school,
memperhatikan
to pay
pendidikan ini
attention
sudah
to
mulai
inclusive education, and they have
menangani
started
pendidikan
to
tersebut.
handle
Jadi kami
inclusive
sama-sama
education issues. So
berkolaborasi,
here
bekerja
we
sama
collaborate, we work
bagaimana pendidikan
together
inklusif
on
ini
how
juga
inclusive
tidak
education in this case
ditinggalkan
will
dalam
not be
upaya
left
untuk pemulihan
behind in the effort to
kesenjangan sosial
fulfill
dari salah satunya akibat
learning
pandemi
recovery
yang
uh,
sudah
resulting from
sudah kita
the
lalui
pandemic
sebelumnya
that
seperti
we have
itu.
experienced before.
Saya rasa untuk kami dari Kemendikbudristek
So I
itu
think
yang dapat
from
kami
MOIC
sampaikan.
RT, this is what I
Mungkin nanti
can
ada beberapa
share,
lagi yang
and maybe there will be
saya
some
masih
more
mencoba
things that I want to ask for clarification regarding proper accommodation in line with MOIC RT's regulation of 48 of 2023. And what about all of the good practices? So I think this will be interesting to see from all of the good practices that Ibu Lily has mentioned. Now this can become also input or recommendation to all of us for those who still ask what we need to do further to support the development of inclusive or the implementation of inclusive education, and also how this can create inclusiveness climate to push education reports, because as mentioned before, this education report is the key to develop their own areas. So inclusiveness is there, which becomes the indicator for education reports, and this is also one of our attentions in in the ministry to create inclusiveness. That is the response that I can share here. Hopefully, it is beneficial to all of us. Thank you very much, Pak Lukman, for the opportunity. Have a good morning. Thank you.
Terima kasih Bu Mika Anastasia atas
Thank you, Ibu
penjelasan
Mika, for the
kebijakan.
explanation
Tadi sudah ada Permendikbud baru ya Bu ya di tahun 2023 ini tentang akomodasi yang layak untuk peserta penyandang disabilitas.
regarding
Lalu
proper
peserta
uh,
dan mungkin bisa saja
accommodation. Ladies and
untuk
gentlemen, you can also search Regulation number 48 of 2023 regarding proper accommodation for students with disabilities. And also there are some programs and also some internal collaboration in MOIC-RT to try to strengthen inclusive education. So it will not be only on the directorate of PMPK, but also other directorates. They will try to be involved in the process of inclusive education, and the government also push this, so we can see the inclusiveness aspect. And several days ago, we have actually launched education report to the public. Next, we have Ibu Sadia.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Ya, Bu Sadiah dari Direktorat Jenderal Pendidikan Islam,
Ibu
Kementerian
Sadia from the Directorate of Islamic Education of Mora. Over to you, Ibu, to respond a little bit the results of the study from Ibu Rasita and also from the province, and also to share the information that can be shared with our audience in line with the policy in madrasah.
Baik, terima
Over to
kasih
you,
mendengar
Ibu
suara
Sadia.
saya ya.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Saya bisa dijadiin co-host untuk share screen.
I can hear loud and clear. Can you make me the co-host
Boleh.
so that I can share my
Baik,
screen?
terima
Okay.
kasih sebelumnya.
Okay, you have 10 minutes,
Baik.
Ibu Sadia.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, peace be
Alhamdulillah.
upon you all.
Puji,
Okay,
puji syukur kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa taala yang telah melimpahkan
thanks
rahmat
to
dan
God
karunia-Nya
Almighty for
sehingga
sharing His
kita
blessings
dalam
so that we can
suasana
all
kondusif
be
yang
here
salam
in
sejahtera untuk kita semua.
good
Om
condition.
Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam
Readings
kebajikan
of
sejahtera
virtue.
bagi kita semua. Baik, Bapak dan Ibu yang kami hormati, terutama nih Mas Lukman ya, yang
Ladies and gentlemen,
mentori dan juga
especially Pak
para
Lukman as the
narasumber
moderator,
sekalian.
and also
Kita
Ibu
memiliki
Rasita, and also Ibu Lili,
inspirasi saya kira ini luar biasa.
who are
Paparannya
really inspiring. I think the presentations are
terima
remarkable.
kasih
And
dari
also I'd like to thank from
INOVASI
INOVASI,
dengan
because
itulah yang
of INOVASI,
kami memiliki bridging atau
we
jembatan.
can have this
Kalau
bridging,
inovasi itu selalu melakukan penelitian apapun itu ya
because
ada
INOVASI always conducts research.
sekolah ada madrasah.
So either in
Dari
schools
sini
and
kami
madrasah.
menyampaikan dari
And Ibu Lili has mentioned
kami
also from the provincial office,
FEB ini luar biasa tidak meninggalkan madrasah karena kalau di daerah
from
adalah
West Nusa
kampus
Tenggara,
bersama,
they
bukan
also work in
menanggung
madrasah.
autonomi
So
Kemendikbud, tetapi
because here they belong to both Moek RT and Mora. So warm applause to Ibu Rasita and also from INOVASI team. Thank you very much for INOVASI to become the bridge for all of us here. So from all of this a learning gap and to bounce back better, I think this is remarkable.
Dan juga kepada Bapak Tolhas Damanik, Bu Mike, dan juga Bu Budhis ya.
And also to Mr. Tolhas Damanik and also from KAPAL. Thank you very much. I think we can all collaborate to talk about all of these best things to strengthen all of this, especially in the prone communities, including students with disabilities, like what we have here in Mora. We also have a program, and we don't really have the structure. In bureaucracy, we don't have specific structure, but by the Director General of Islamic Education, we have working groups or POGJA for inclusive Islamic education. And in this case, this is under the Director General of Islamic Education. And we are also grateful that from the ministry and also for the head of
menjadi bunda inklusi yang selalu mendorong kami untuk selalu menggiatkan
inclusive program is Madam Minister or the wife of the minister
di Kementerian Agama
in the ministry, and I think this is really remarkable. And I think this can strengthen all of us here in the Director General of Islamic Education to strengthen for students with disabilities. Now, while Ibu Rasita has mentioned points in generals and Ibu Lily has talked about various approaches, I, in the Ministry of Religious Affairs or MORA,
ada baiknya karena kami menggunakan dan alhamdulillah kami juga sudah
I think
mengeluarkan
because
SKDRJ nomor
we have also the director decisions letter regarding the roadmap of Islamic education in madrasah and also in pesantren, and also we're going to be supported
dan juga di PAI-nya
on how the Islamic education and also in school. So I think this program is something that we can accelerate because the PMA is under the discussion process to make this in line with the Ministry of Laws and Human Rights. So we use the regulation from the Director General's regulation. So this is where we can accelerate this. And then again,
dengan program pendekatan agama ini kami selalu menyampaikan bahwa
with this religious approach, I always say that everyone, as God's creations, we are all the best of all the creatures. And also with us here in Islam, in the verse of Nur and also in the verse of Abasa, we highlight that there is no difference between people with disabilities and people without disabilities. So they are all the same. They are all, God's creatures. We are all God's creatures. And we suggest to everyone in the ministry.
Salah satu akhlak mulia adalah ikut menjaga atau menjaga kesetaraan sosial bagi penyandang.
One of the best here is to support people with disabilities, and there are two basics that there are two big fundamentals that we use based on regulation. This is the mandate from our country, and this is also the mandate for our religion. So this is to accelerate to everyone that this disabilities program is indeed important, and this is actually a call. Actually, this is a call from our religion for those with a religion. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, here we also have a way to see students with disabilities and also from Ibu Lili. I think it's really remarkable. And there have been a lot of activities from the provincial government from West Nusa Tenggara, where they have conducted technical guideline, and we are trying to keep up our pace, and we try our best to work
lakukan
And
dan
there are a lot of
kami
programs to do.
inilah yang menjadi penguat kami
So
mari
this is
kita
what strengthen us,
madrasah
that actually in madrasah, actually in pesantren, and also in higher education.
ini banyak yang memang
So
harus
there are a lot
dilakukan
that we have to
ke
work
depannya
on
sehingga
because we have
kita
various bureaucracy to
seperti
keep
tadi
up.
Ibu
We can
Rasita
go faster,
sampaikan
like what
8
Ibu
kali
Rasita has
karena
mentioned
antrenya udah
in the
terlalu
movie. We have a
supaya
segways.
sampainya juga bisa sama
So
karena
we need
teknologi
to
yang
go
sudah
fast so that
berbasis dengan
we
adanya
go,
cepat
we can reach our
dinamika yang kami
destination
miliki
faster.
sehingga
So here,
harus kami berlari
based on what we have here, we have to keep up the
permasalahan
pace. We need to run faster.
kami ini
And
adalah
next, the problem
kesulitan
here or the
guru dan
condition here,
guru-gurunya
actually,
bagaimana
what we
kami
experience here
mendampingi anak
are
guru
with the
pendidikan
teachers
di
on
madrasah kami
how we can give
hampir
special
semuanya adalah
education to
memang
madrasah,
guru
because
pendamping khusus yang
we do this
memiliki
from special
kompetensi
teachers here with the competence
kualifikasi
or with
pendidikan
the
khusus
qualification
di Kemendikbud.
of special
Kami
education,
adalah guru-guru yang
like what we have in
memang
McCarthy.
mengajar
We are here the
biasa
teachers who
saja,
teach
tetapi begitu
in
ada
a
anak-anak yang
regular fashion, but once we have students with special needs,
kami harus
and
melakukan
when we don't reject them, now this means when if we accept them, this means we need to
saya kira
make the reinforcement.
banyak sekali
And so I
madrasah yang
think
bertanya
this is also a lot of madrasah that can actually work here because this is the mandate
menerima
from our
bantuan
constitution that we
sehingga
the madrasa needs to be
apakah
able to accept
sarana-sarana
whoever
seperti
they
itu
come.
apakah
So then the
hanya
question is whether the
apakah
facilities and
hanya harus
infrastructures
diterima
or
yang
whether the
terbaik
teachers first, or
lalu
do we need to have
bisa
all first
dijawab kami Bapak
before we
Dirjen
accept
Pembinaan kami
the
mengatakan
students?
bahwa
And from our
harusnya
leader,
diterima dulu
he
karena
suggests
ini
that
banyak
we need to
undang-undang
accept
amanah
those students
amanah
first because this is the
konstitusinya
mandate
soal
from the constitution in our
kompetensinya
religion. So when we talk about the competence and
kualifikasi mungkin
reinforcement, also qualification and everything and so on, and
rapat
also if we talk about the
koordinasi
curriculum and
dengan
everything and so on and so
oleh
forth,
karena itu kami
we can do this
mempunyai
side by
waktu
side. That's why
sekarang
this
ini
roadmap is
kami
made
menggunakan pilot
as a
project untuk
strategy that we
memodifikasi
use
kami
piloting or modeling so that we make
madrasah-madrasah
this
yang memang
decision
memiliki anak berkebutuhan
letters
khusus
or
kan
decree.
kita
So
cek dulu
all of the
apakah
madrasa with students with special
mereka
needs
memang
are,
semua
uh,
memiliki
you know,
sarana
put
prasarana
into
di kami
this
kami SK kami
decision letter. So we
karena
create
untuk
decision letter to
apa
this.
namanya karena
Why?
jumlah madrasahnya banyak sehingga kalau
Because the
untuk
number of
semuanya
madrasa are quite a lot, and
madrasah tersebut
of course,
mungkin
in
ada yang
madrasa,
anak-anak
maybe
yang
there are
kalau kami
some do not have students
menggunakan
with special needs. So if we
kami
declare using this decision letter, or in
Pendidikan
Indonesia we call it as SK,
melakukan
this will facilitate all of us on how to
apa
conduct
yang harus
modeling
dilakukan ini
and
yang
also what to do
terhasilkan
further. Now, all will
walaupun
be put
sesungguhnya secara
into this decision letter,
Masih
although
2 menit
waktu
lagi.
in reality, oh, one more minute? Okay, one more minute. Okay, I need to do
mainstreaming
faster.
kita
Okay.
mencoba
So on
memainstreaming
also the
seperti
mainstream,
memberitahu
we try
bahwasanya
to
memang
mainstream
penolakan ada
because
juga orang
maybe there are a lot of rejection
masyarakat ataupun
and
kebijakan
also
pemerintah
policies and
terforsir
also
di
with the
kami
government,
yang memang berat
also
sehingga
in the regional
kami
office. We need
memainstreamingkan
to,
menyampaikan bahwa
massively
ini harus
mainstream all of this
dilakukan
to
dan
say that this is
komponen di
something
dalam
that we
kami
need
itu
to
sudah
do.
ada
The component for a
yang harus kita
roadmap
kejar
or
harus
inclusive roadmap, we have 12 based
kemudian
on the
pengawasannya
regulation,
bagaimana
and
secara
then also the network, the
pembelajaran
curriculum, the
evaluasi
learning, the
pengelolaan
evaluation, the management,
sarana prasarana
human
seperti
resource, facilities,
karena
and infrastructure, and also the post program. So
misalnya
we
nih
try our best here, for example, for
mana yang
Madrasah
anak tersebut
Ibtidaiyah or MI, and then we go to MTS, all the way to Aliyah or high school, all the way to universities. We try to summarize that into one so that this Pokja or the task force
dan
from
alhamdulillah
the
kami
really
bisa
early level of education all the way
membawa
to universities, and we have
kira
tried
nih mas
to
capaian kerja yang kami
we have
lakukan
made various
sampai berkali-kali
achievements
kayak
from
ini salah
2021 to
satunya adalah
2023,
kami
among
ada
which
yang
are that we have what is called
juga kita
as
punya
FPMI,
untuk apa namanya pokja dan
where
juga
we
kami
built a POCJA
mengatur
or working group, and then also we reinforce
sekarang
various
kami
supports. And
ambil
also here what we do is we have various
dari World Bank
reinforcement because we have a program
mengamankan
from the World Bank where we have training for inclusive madrasa for the principal and supervisors of madrasa, and then BINTEC,
kemudian juga TOT
and then also we have
terus
TOT, and then
kemudian
we have
apa
also
namanya penguatan
um,
guru
what is it?
kami
A
terus juga
GPK reinforcement. Also,
memfasilitasi
we have
sehingga nanti
national
kami bisa
facilitators to facilitate this.
sehingga memudahkan menjadikan
So
lebih
this
mempertemukan
facilitates
anak-anak tadi.
us to
Setelah
strengthen
itu
our
sekretaris kami
steps. I
telah
think that's all
menyampaikan
from me. Again,
warta-warta
thank you
secara
very
lengkap
much.
bahwa ABK
Uh,
adalah duga
we
garda.
see
Saya
that,
sebagai
you know,
panitia
these
sekaligus
special
ketua
students are
menyampaikan
not
rasa
flaws.
hormat
We,
dan
all of the
mohon
humans,
maaf
we are
atas kekeliruan
dignified
dan saya
people,
selalu
and
mengatakan
being
itu
students with
saja
special
dan
needs is
merendahkan cita rasa
actually
manusia
destiny of God, and we cannot
Allah.
degrade that, because
ABK
degrading
adalah
the
rahmat
creature
bagi siapapun.
means also degrading the
ABK tidak
creator.
mudah dikasih
Students with
karunia
special needs, they do not
pendidikan
want
sekaligus
pity, but they
manusia.
need to be understood
ABK dan
with their
manusia
condition. Students with
dimanapun
special needs, as
berada
humans
adalah
and God's
makhluk
creations, we are all the
satu-satunya
best
yang memiliki hak yang
of
sama di hadapan
creations, and we
Allah.
have
Oleh
equal
karena
rights
itu
before God.
hak
Therefore,
bagi ABK
students,
untuk
or the
mendapat
rights for students with
berbagai
special
apapun
needs is
terutama
mandatory
dari
for everyone, including for
pemerintah
us from Mora, where we push
hingga
that we
menjadi
need to
pendidikan
facilitate
yang terbaik
and we need to
dalam
give the
pertemuan di
best
Kementerian
equal
Agama
to everyone in the
RI
ministry,
Pendidikan Islam.
especially in the
Saya
Directorate
kira
General of the
selain
Islamic
slogan
Education.
mungkin nanti bisa
I
ditanyakan
think
oleh
that's all
panitia
from
tapi
me,
karena saya
Lukman.
slide-nya saya paparin ini udah saya potong-potong nih Pak
Thank you. I've tried to make as fast as possible. So this is
Mudah-mudahan
what we have done
bermanfaat dan
in Mora.
terus-menerus
Hopefully this is
selalu
beneficial,
mendampingi
and
berkebun terus karena ini
we
adalah
need to march
tugas-tugas
forward to help
bersama
students with
selama
special
ibadah
needs.
adalah ibadah bagi kita. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Peace be upon us all.
Terima kasih banyak Bu Sadia. Mohon
Thank you,
maaf
Ibu
ketika
Saadia. Apologies also to cut your presentation, but maybe for all of the participants from our webinar, you can check their materials from Ibu Saadia and also from other participants. We have prepared them and you can download. And it was mentioned that in Mora, they have inclusive education working group working on inclusive education. And then also with this, there's also a roadmap that has been prepared and also various efforts to reach all of this, including what is different from what is mentioned from Moikarti is special decision for inclusive education, because this is how to prepare actually. So we need to prepare this. Now we have two discussants. They are all from the ministry. So in terms of regulation, they are ready for both schools under Moik RT or schools under Mora. So now I'll give the floor to Mr. Tolhas Damanik. Mr. Tolhas Damanik is the Executive Director of Wahana Inklusif Indonesia. Mr. Tolhas will respond first from what has been given from our keynote speakers. And then also we learned that actually from Wahana Inklusif Indonesia, they've also done a study. So you can share the study or the study result here for students with disabilities during the pandemic, and also the support that have been shared by Wahana Inklusif Indonesia. Mr. Tolhas Damanik, the screen is yours for 10 minutes. Thank you, moderator. Thank you, everyone. Peace be upon us all. Greetings of virtue. First off, allow me to extend my utmost uh, appreciation to INOVASI for inviting all of us here to contribute in this webinar. And of course, this is a sign how huge we want to collaborate all the time and also in the future to ensure that we have inclusive education and also education for students with disabilities in Indonesia. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to talk a little bit about Wahana Inklusi Indonesia, that is Wahana Inklusi Indonesia, as of December 19th, 2023, we are 10 years old. So we were established back in 2013, and our focus is to support the government and the community to bring inclusive education, especially to give the education rights for students with disabilities. Now, in the past 10 years of us having this organization for inclusive education, and also we have tried our best to assist schools, working on inclusive education, and also we have done research in this case for inclusive education because we want that our advocacy is based on research or based on proof, and also various campaign here is done through social media. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in conducting our activity, in our daily activities related to research, as mentioned before, that back in 2021, we have also worked together with PMPK from MOIC RT to conduct a training regarding the form of supports required by students with disabilities to be able to keep getting their rights in education, especially during the pandemic. And then also to work together with the World Bank back in 2022, where we work also with MOIC RT of Indonesia, and we have conducted a pilot and also identification on various development for education for students with challenges and also intellectual challenges, including in Lebak, Ponorogo, Bima, Cilacap, and we have 5 areas, and also in Bondowoso. So we also get a lot of experience from what we have done. And last year is after Wahana Inklusif Indonesia is just an organization where our main focus here is on teachers' capacity development. Now, in conducting this inclusive education, those are what we do. Now, related to the invitation sent to me as a discussant, first off, I'd like to appreciate our colleagues from INOVASI to make this seminar, especially to see the gap experienced by our students in Indonesia, especially related to numeracy and literacy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to share that I want to start my assumption by saying that maybe or possibly learning loss has been experienced by our students with disabilities way before the pandemic. Why I said so? Because, of course, while appreciating various advancement in inclusive education implementation, we are still facing with various challenges in terms of the learning of students with disabilities in schools implementing inclusive education. Ladies and gentlemen, we have experienced the ups and downs of support in the implementation of inclusive education in Indonesia, starting from, back in the era of 20s and then into 2011, it goes down again. So, with various supports and also the commitment of the government for inclusive education. And we can see it from there. Ladies and gentlemen, regarding, first, this is I want to respond on the research done here, where first, of course, we highly appreciate this research because although, like what I've mentioned before, although the prone community, especially those are people with disabilities are prone community, and of course even without research we can easily see that they are the marginalized group in terms of how they gain access to education, especially to literacy and numeracy. So I think this is highly relevant to say that actually with various challenges that we have with such a minimum accommodation that is not there in. So we can see that these people are the most prone, and this has also shown what comes to the mind of the experts. Now, if we look at the study or the history of inclusive education, now the spirit is education for all. Like in 1994, we can see that, and this will become the embryo of inclusive education, saying that actually the most prone groups, those who do not get access to education, are people with disabilities. So they are among marginalized people. So let's say if you see like from the result, like from what Rasita has said, now the way I see it for the category of students with disabilities, even the competence unachieved level, it's 73%, and some goes up to 90%, where people have intersectional disabilities. Now, actually, what I want to deliver here is it will also be interesting to observe. I'm not the expert in literacy, but is there any standards that we can use to explain better, actually? So, what is the accuracy level from people with disabilities? Because in the end, or in turn, whether we have already had the figures, what we want to know later on is what is actually literacy learning is that needs to be given to students with disabilities. Now, I think if we have reached this point, I think this will be remarkable, because if we listen to students with disabilities, we cannot stop there. We need to check that students with disabilities are varied. We have visual disabilities, we have hearing disabilities, we have speaking disabilities, and so on and so forth. So the concept of inclusive education implementation here, we know exactly that there is no one single method that fits for all. Meaning, actually, okay, 2 more minutes. Okay.
2 menit lagi.
Wow, time flies so fast. Okay. And I only comment one. So I expect here that there will be other research that can narrow down the learning methodologies. Now, next, in terms of the comments on the implementation or government support in inclusive education, we appreciate, and this reminds us that the same pattern is developed by PMPK. So therefore, when we have inclusive education, starting from the car and the policy and by design, they are all the same. But there is one problem that makes me that we need to be consistent here in terms of policy implementation and also for the budget implementation. So I think this will become the key whether this pattern can be ongoing or not. So in the grand design prepared by East Nusa Tenggara office, I also expect that there is a budget projection that can be shared annually to convince us that this works. So in terms of policy, we also appreciate the latest regulation about proper accommodation and also a disabilities unit, although some are debatable, including Article 11.22, which is after getting favor, then the question they would ask to give a proper accommodation for students to NAP. Now this becomes our critics actually for the new regulation, including when we expect that the disabilities units can, I mean, it can be like they can give a more operative service, and this has become something that I believe we need to discuss further in the future. So I think the key here comes back to the city governments, especially for primary school education and all the way up, because the biggest problem here is how we can ask the commitment from city or district governments to actually allocate, to actually care for the schools. Although maybe later on we're going to have another unit, but remember the success key is in every schools. So the question of whether this will become a solution or not, I think time will tell. I think that's for me, Mr. Lukman. Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Thank you,
wabarakatuh.
Tolhas. Ini adalah
Waalaikumsalam, Mr. Toha.
beberapa
We
penyampaian
have
yang juga
some
sangat
delivery
berfaedah ya,
and
baik
also
dari
some
Ibu Rasita
recommendations,
maupun
either from Ibu
Ibu
Rasita
Utami dan
or
juga
from Ibu Lili Suryani,
Ibu Meke terkait
and also for Ibu Mika,
tambahan saya untuk terkait dengan riset tadi yang dipaparkan. Ada pertanyaan-pertanyaan lain
related
juga
to
yang
the
ingin
research. There
disampaikan.
are follow-up questions.
Entah mungkin
or deepening questions. I don't know whether the data is there. Maybe Ibu Rasita hasn't mentioned the data, but we can always pen the question so that Ibu Rasita can respond and answer the follow-up questions from this research result. And then next, regarding the city government's policy in West Nusa Tenggara province. Now, the suggestion is how to make it consistent in the implementation and budgeting. So I think that is where we can be strong. And some articles, may be difficult, so we can work on the articles in that regulation. So I think not all questions are answered. So that's a little bit of a input, Ibu Mika, for the improvement.
Budhis Utami,
Last, we have also discussants from the Lingkaran Pendidikan Alternatif atau KAPAL. Usually they call it KAPAL Perempuan. The issue is a little bit different. While previously we talked about the speakers and also the discussants focus more on the issues of disabilities. We want to talk about other issues within the term of inclusiveness. So where the prone community, among which is because of they have students with disabilities, and like what Ibu Rasita has mentioned, the people from rural areas or from remote areas, they have difficulties to access. Next, from Ibu Budhis Utami, I'll give the floor to respond and also to share from Kapal Perempuan. Over to you, Ibu Budhis Utami. Thank you, Pak Lukman. Hello, everyone.
Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam
Greetings
Kebajikan,
of virtue.
dan salam sehat untuk Bapak Ibu semuanya. Saya langsung ke sudah terlihat?
Okay, I'll jump right to it. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Ya, saya sedang full screen ya.
Okay, we can make it into full screen.
Saya langsung pada tanggapan.
Okay, so I'll jump to the response to Ibu Rasita. So basically, I agree with all of the finding results and also the recommendations. However, I expect that the recommendation to the government from INOVASI, from this learning discrepancy study, then the provision of learning accessible to the students, and also it has locality context are based. So if we still haven't seen how the school building is, but in the remote areas, the schools can be accessed by a student from another island, for example, and then you can imagine for those coming from different islands, and you can imagine if there are no boat service, for example, and then if there are no good jetty or jet pier, because I work in Pangkajide and we work in 11 islands. So you can imagine how difficult it is for the students to actually learn at school, and also including students with disabilities. So the context here,
fasilitas yang dapat diakses
the
lebih dari
facilities accessible is more than what has been mentioned from our keynote speakers.
Saya juga setuju mengenai interseksionalitas masalah tadi.
And the next, I agree with problems intersectionality. Ibu Rasita hopes that there will be something that we can dig deeper. So for the small kids and also the women students and also other situations happening there can also become a challenge. So I hope we can sharpen the study results to actually see the overall intersectionality.
Saya tanggapan ke Ibu Lili. Ibu Lili kapal perempuan juga bekerja di Lombok Timur dan Lombok Utara, Bu.
Okay. Next, for Ibu Lili, Kapal Perempuan also works in East and West Nusa Tenggara. Then next, my utmost appreciation to
NTB ya, karena
West
dia
Nusa Tenggara
menggunakan
provincial government because
inklusi.
they have
Nah,
made
tanggapan
various
saya dari
innovations. Now,
Aswin
my response on
2024,
the presentation or your
sistem
presentation is,
pendataan dan
to what
layanan
extent
informasi
the
sosial
system
dapat
or
diakses
online
oleh
data
anak-anak di wilayah
is
terpencil dan
accessible for students
memang
with remote
karena
areas.
kalau saya tidak salah
Because
ketahui
if I'm not mistaken, from what I've understood,
pendataan online
so
itu
the
data dari
online data
masyarakat
collection is
bagaimana
actually from
anak-anak penyandang
schools on
disabilitas
how these
atau
students with
anak-anak yang di
special
wilayah
skills.
terpencil ya seperti di wilayah pegunungan seperti itu bisa terdata Bu gitu.
So we can
Bagaimana
make
menjaga
data
mereka
out
dan
of all
anak-anak
of
yang
them. So the
usia
question
sekolah
is, how can we
tapi
make
juga
the
belum
data
bersekolah
for the students in
termasuk
school
penyandang
near, but they
disabilitas.
don't go to
Jadi
schools,
kapal perempuan
including students with
secara khusus
disabilities? So
memang
KAPAL Perempuan,
memfasilitasi
or at least
seluruh
for
kapal
me personally,
perempuan
I have ever
anak dan penyandang
facilitated the
disabilitas di Lombok Utara.
uh,
Jadi selain
musyawarah
ada
for
dana
women.
ada
So
sekolah
there were
ya,
no
ada
schools,
program juga untuk para
no
penyandang
programs as
disabilitas
well
termasuk
for students with
keterampilan
disabilities and including
anak-anak
for
penyandang
children or
disabilitas.
children
Jadi
with
apa yang
disabilities.
disampaikan Ibu memang
So
penting
what
dan
you have
sangat
mentioned indeed is
terkait data
important,
ini
ma'am,
gitu.
regarding
Dan
this data.
kemudian menurut
Now,
kita
data,
Bu
according
yang
to
dilakukan
us,
secara
it's important
komprehensif
to do
bekerja
in
sama
a
dengan
comparison,
Kemenkes, Dinas
in a
Sosial
comprehensive way,
terutama terkait
working with the
angka
Social
penyandang
Affairs Office,
disabilitas.
including to
Nah, Kapal
identify
punya
the
data
number of
nih Bu
students of
tentang
disabilities KAPAL.
selain Lombok
We have
Utara
the
dan di desa
data in
Lingkaran
Society and
Kalibambang. Jadi
Kalibambang
desa
village.
itu dulu
So there
banyak
on those
penyandang
village,
disabilitas
back then they
seperti
don't
itu
have the
yang
data for
merupakan
disabilities, but
aktivitas
when we
tradisional
conduct data
penyandang
collection, we found
disabilitas.
105 people with
Nah, itu
disabilities.
sebenarnya cukup mudah gitu
Now
Bu
that's actually
ketika
quite easy
dijangkau ke desa-desa yang tadi Bu sampaikan
to
bekerja
go all the way
sama
to
dengan
villages.
kabupaten juga
Like, for
dengan dinas.
example, those who have
Selain
worked
itu
together with
pendalaman dari saya harapan
other
berkat
things. So
presentasi dari
this is what we hope from Ibu
kemudian
Lily's
yang kedua Bu
presentation.
roadmap
And then next, the
2025
roadmap from for
menurut saya
2025.
sudah penting harus dilakukan pada tahun 2024. Jadi bersamaan dengan
So this can
peningkatan
be done in line with
kapasitas
capacity
guru,
reinforcement
kepala sekolah
of
itu kan
the
sudah ada di
principals and
roadmap
everything.
2024 ya Bu, kalau nggak salah gitu. Nah, kemudian yang itu sekalian menurut saya peningkatan kualitas program satuan
And
pendidikan
also, if we talk about
serta penyediaan biaya
program
bahan ajar dan alat bantu
development
KBK dalam
and also various
segera dilakukan pada
equipments, and now they
2024
can
dan
be
sudah
done in
dilanjutkan sampai
2024 and they
2025
can be
karena
continued all
sama-sama
the way to
mendukung
2025
kinerja
because
penguatan
they are both
kapasitas, peningkatan
equally,
kualitas program, dan
urgent
akselerasi
for like quality
pembinaan
development and
pendidikan
also the acceleration
berkelanjutan.
of providing
Nah,
media.
kemudian yang ketiga,
And then number
ada
3,
pertanyaan tadi
likewise, there's a question
di chat dan
in the
sekaligus
chat
saya coba
column. And
memperdalam
also, I
kerjasama
like to
kerjasama
check
yang
deeper
sudah
all of the
dilakukan
partnerships that
oleh
have been done by
Dinas Pendidikan
the
Provinsi
Provincial
Kemendikbud
Education
dengan
Office of West Nusa Tenggara
lembaga atau OPD lain atau dengan masyarakat NGO
with
atau
other institutions
organisasi-organisasi
or with
seperti itu. Nah,
NGOs.
saya ingin
Now,
sekaligus bertanya ya
maybe I want to
ini
ask
apa
to
itu
you, Ibu Lili,
mekanismenya
what
dan
is the
apa saja
form of partnership
pihak-pihak
and
yang
what
memang menurut
has been
saya
created?
penting
And according to
sudah
me,
setuju dengan
this is
ini
important. I
untuk
agree
bisa
with you, ma'am,
bekerjasama dengan
because there will always be
memperjelas
partnership with
begitu
other
anak-anak itu
institutions or
dengan
other units.
disabilitas
Students
itu
with
tidak
disabilities,
disekolahkan itu
they don't go to
dilakukan
school.
para
That is
orang
also
tua
because the
pengaduan
parents
begitu
try to hide
masyarakat
this condition. The
membuli
community
gitu ya jadi
would bully
memang
them. So indeed,
anak-anak itu nggak bisa kita
these students,
deteksi tidak
I
bisa
mean,
kita
while we
lihat
cannot
wajahnya
detect,
data langsung data
their
maka kita
whereabouts, I
bisa
mean, we don't have the
bekerjasama
data, they
dengan
cannot go to school
perspektif
because
masyarakat
there is a
dan juga
perspective factor
perspektif dari
and also
keluarga.
the
Jadi harus
perspective
ada
from their own
edukasi.
respective
Jadi memang
family. So there
pendekatan
needs to
ini
be
harus
education. So this
komprehensif
approach
karena
needs to
masyarakat
be
itu
done in a
benar-benar harus
comprehensive way because our
menerima
community, up until now, they
anak-anak dengan
still cannot
kemampuan
accept
yang
students with
berbeda-beda.
different
Nah, yang
uh,
keempat, memperkuat
capability.
cakupan
Number
inklusi
4 is
sosial. Ini
to
penting juga
broaden social
yang disampaikan
inclusion,
tadi ya sama
and
Mbak
this has
Mira,
been mentioned
artinya tidak
by
serta
Ibu
merta pada
Rasita.
anak-anak yang
And this is
difabel
not limited
harus
only for students
mengintegrasikan
with
dalam konteks
disabilities,
kerja
but
itu
this is to
3 pilar
integrate that in
penting
education. There are three
yang
big sins of
disampaikan oleh
Indonesian
Pak Menteri ya,
education, as
yaitu
mentioned by the
dengan
minister.
kekerasan seksual,
which is bullying, sexual violence, and also intolerance. So when we talk about these three things, actually, we are talking about social exclusion in a more complex matter experienced by the children or maybe the adults by I certain certain identities. So we can start from children. Next, I want to share how KAPAL in this case can conduct inclusive education. Now, this has been done through a women's school or girls' schools, and to respond COVID, we also talk about formal education.
Maaf, 1 menit lagi mungkin bisa agak dipercepat.
Saya baca aja ya, Mas.
Baik,
Ya,
baik.
ini bermula dari sesi
Okay, I will just read this now. Starting from high school students who have graduated and they are gathered in women's school in Sabutung Island, and this has helped them. And in you know on other side, Moik RT has shared this internet data plan, but for those living in remote areas in the mountains or those who do not have gadgets, they cannot use these facilities. Next, Kapal Perempuan creates uh, initiative to make community radio by using this community radio, and we help them with COVID in the remote areas and also in mountains. So we have in Pangkep and Sukadana villages. Now this is in Bayan. This is to help for primary school and then for junior high school or SMP. And then as you can see here, this is the radio. So they gather around the location. Now here, we also give education on COVID-19 to identify and to conduct uh, prevention. And next, the dissemination cannot reach all the way to remote areas. So, and at the same time, we, through the radio, we educate gender equality and tolerance through various stories where they listen to the stories through the radio. So we select the schools, so not only about male heroism and the women are to be rescued. And so we support one another and we want to put all of these issues there. And then next, we conduct education to stop uh, violence towards women, and this has increased in COVID, and this is still done. And the fifth is the promotion for small and medium enterprises for from women. So those are some of the shares from Kapal. Thank you, Pak Lukman.
Baik, nanti mungkin bisa di-sharing juga PPT tadi agar para peserta webinar kita juga bisa mengakses dan mempelajari lebih lanjut. Bu Budhis, terima kasih banyak tadi sudah menyampaikan beberapa masukan terkait dengan presentasi Bu Rasita dan juga Bu Lili ya. Untuk Bu Rasita tadi beberapa poin sudah di
Thank you, Ibu Budhis. There are some points that have been delivered. And I think this is important to also see the islands territory and also regarding intersectionality in this study.
Bu Rasita kita kasih kesempatan kedua nanti Bu Rasita dan Bu Lili juga untuk menanggapi masukan-masukan tadi, termasuk diantaranya masukan untuk Bu Lili yang
including from Ibu Lili. I have taken notes regarding the system and also with various things here. Now, actually, the time is up, but there are some questions that whether we like it or not, I have to guide this. And also to the discussants regarding the relevance of the question. So first here, I'd like to read from Ibu Lili. There are some questions, Ibu Lili. So the question is whether these special teachers are spread, and second, still from Risanihaya, what are the challenges in building this collaboration? And then we have also from Bapak Handoko to Ibu Lili, what are the forms of partnership between provincial and education office and district level in uh, handling students with special needs? And then next from Ibu Budhis, I mean, you can know with all of this. So hopefully all questions are there to Ibu Lili, and then we have also a question for Ibu Rasita and Ibu Saadia. But I'll give the floor first.
Waktunya
Ya,
terbatas dan pasti kita
ya terkait dengan pertanyaan Mbak Rista ya, yang
Regarding Risa's question,
khusus tersebar di sekolah reguler dan baru di SLB. Jadi mungkin pemahaman
whether
untuk
they're in regular
reguler
schools.
itu
So
memang kayaknya
the
butuh
understanding here,
tapi ya itu
Ibu
ada
Risa,
jenisnya untuk
there are
guru
three
khusus
types
gitu.
of
Guru pembimbing khusus yang
supporting.
sudah kita bintek itu guru pembimbing khusus.
So
Nah,
for
itu
Bintek,
pendamping khusus itu ada
so
namanya
for special
PJ, nanti
teachers
yang
is
reguler.
teachers assigned in regular schools, and also we have also teachers for special educations. It will be on special schools. So they have three of them.
di sekolah-sekolah reguler yang memang baru kita
So they are in regular schools. So these trainings have been long done.
dukungan ya seperti pertanyaan nomor 2 apakah
So like
kolaborasi
question number two,
membangun kolaborasi
whether
antar
how
guru
to
dengan
build the
kepala sekolah
collaboration.
kaitannya kadang-kadang di satuan pendidikan ketika ada pergantian kepala sekolah banyak kepala sekolah yang memang menolak
So there are
ajaran seperti
principals
yang
who
terjadi di
refuse
sekolahnya
this inclusive
berbeda. Jadi menurut
education
saya
in their
memang
schools.
itu ada tantangan tersendiri ya di kami di Dinas Kebud dan tentunya ini kan ada
And of
pertimbangan
course,
dengan Menteri
there are some
melakukan seperti
parties
itu.
involved here.
Yang selanjutnya Pak Handoko ya yang
Next
bekerja sama
to
apakah
Pak
ada
Handoko,
dan seperti yang saya jelaskan tadi bahwa pada
working
saat ini
how to make
kami
this
lagi
partnership.
melaksanakan
Like
MOU
now
dan
we
saya
have
dengar
done
juga
MOU, and
dari direktorat sudah paham bahwa
maybe in the directorate,
direktur sendiri sudah
in the
mengundang saya
directorate itself, they have invited us from the province,
termasuk pemaparan MOU sudah di-share oleh
including MOU
tapi sampai
presentation.
sekarang MOU itu belum
And up until now, the MOU hasn't been returned to us, and we asked for some time to meet them
apa saja yang
to
memang
talk about
dianggap ke
the
depan
points
dari
that they
MOU itu
consider
dilakukan sesuai
relevant
dengan
or
prinsip
irrelevant
Kabupaten
in
Kota itu
line
yang memang
with
saya
these
koordinasi.
conditions. So,
Kemudian untuk
and then next
Mbak Mbak Budhis tadi ya, Budhis ya?
to Ibu Budhis
Yang kaitannya sama pendataan, ya pendataan tadi. Pendataan yang di daerah yang tidak terjaring
for the data collection
punya
that
aplikasi
is not touched by internet. We have Koboto block application.
untuk yang offline, untuk yang online. Jadi data itu bisa dimasukkan ke
So from this data,
internet. Ada linknya mungkin
uh,
bisa bagi kepada
there's a link
Anda.
there. Maybe I can share the link.
Ada
And from there, I mean, you can fill it out if
langsung
they
ditarik
don't
oleh
have internet
otak pada
access.
dashboard.
And this will be taken into the dashboard data.
Kobo Toblok namanya.
They call it as Koboto block.
Untuk instrumen dashboard
So actually, this is for the instrument dashboard.
ada yang tidak bersekolah di
So some do not go to schools,
untuk
and our focus here is actually for the village officials. But up until now, we haven't tested actually,
kami tahu sendiri bahwa
because we know that there are a lot of students with special needs who do not go to
dashboard itu sudah ada.
school actually. So it's actually there.
Kalau
And then next,
kolaborasi
if we talk about collaboration,
tadi seperti yang saya
now like
jelaskan
what I have mentioned before,
membentuk
we have built this support system team
itu beberapa
on TSPI.
masuk ke situ. Hanya saja yang paling kami butuhkan
But what we need the most here is the data for students with disabilities.
ingin melakukan MOU itu justru dengan Dukcapil karena
So we want to have MOU with the people from the civil registration office, but they only have it in general. So what we want here is how to make this dissemination for school age children, including we can make the various data. We have the data
ada MOU seperti itu.
with a MOU.
Yang bisa saya sampaikan.
Ya Bu Lili, terima kasih banyak.
Thank you, Ibu Lili.
Tadi
Thank you for the response.
Kebetulan Bu Sadia juga sudah menjawab
Ibu
pertanyaan
Sadia has
Bu
explained
maupun
the
Bu
answer from Pak Ruli.
via chat. Saya kira mungkin boleh kami kasih kesempatan yang belum menyampaikan jawaban di sini. Ada pertanyaan juga.
So here there are some
Bu
questions also here
Bu Mika masih
from Ibu Mika.
tahu, Bu?
Ibu Mika, are you still
Bu
there?
Destina Marta, bisa juga mungkin dibantu Bu Rasita nanti terkait dengan kondisi di kelas ini kan masih
Now
terjadi
this is in
variasi
line with the
kondisi di kelas satu.
latest condition.
Ada ABK yang kurvanya
Now we have students with special needs,
guru pengajarnya tidak memiliki skill.
but the teachers do not have the skill. So the question is, what can we do
Hal ini gitu ya.
regarding this
Kemudian
situation?
Bu Mika,
So maybe Ibu Meika, are you there? Are you still here with
jika
us?
tidak mungkin oh ya Bu Mika. Silakan Bu Mika, mungkin
Yeah,
2 menit.
over to you, Ibu Meika. So maybe just 2 minutes.
Terakhir dengan Bu Rasita ya.
Maaf, saya tadi barusan dari AFK, bisa
Iya.
diulangi?
Jadi bagaimana terkait
Okay, can you
permasalahan
repeat?
terjadi di kelas di mana
Okay.
dalam kelas 1 misalnya itu kondisi
Now, for example,
heterogen, ada yang normal,
like
tapi ada
some
juga
students have
seperti itu.
heterogeneous condition,
Pengajarnya tidak memiliki
but the teachers do not have the skill to teach,
kewalahan menyesuaikan
so that they have difficulties to adjust with Kurikulum Merdeka. So what can they do?
Baik, baik.
Okay, so
Pendidik ya, guru ya. Yang
for the
tidak
educators,
memiliki
for the
pelatihan,
teachers without special education background,
mungkin bisa bekerja sama
so
dengan
maybe they
SLB
can
gitu,
work together
dengan
with
SLB
special
sebagai
schools as the
sumber dan juga mungkin
center
mendapatkan dari
or the
UMR.
source, and they can also use from
Nanti bisa saling
other
bekerja sama
service,
dan
and then
juga
they can
sama
collaborate
dengan
and
sebagaimana seperti yang ada
like
dalam dukungan
what we have in the
yaitu ada di
support in Kurikulum Merdeka.
Jadi Bapak
They
Ibu
have learning community, and then ladies and gentlemen, next you can, the teachers can use this community, so they can share this product knowledge on how to handle all of the students with special needs in their own respective classrooms,
tidak memiliki
where the teachers may not have
itu salah satu solusi
a
yang dapat
background of special education. So this is what we can do,
memang untuk
because I mean, if we talk about the needs here for teachers with special needs, but now according to, based on the regulation, there is no terminology for special teachers. They call it teacher for special education. So ladies and gentlemen, you can work together in the learning community to share all of the good practices and knowledge sharing. And also you can use special schools or SLB as your sources. And they can help on how they can work with students with special needs in the classroom. I think that's all what I can share. Pak Lukman, thank you very much. Okay, Ibu Mika, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the interpretation feature. I repeat, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the interpretation feature. Thank you.
Tadi juga ada dari Pak Tolhas ya terkait dengan tingkat literasi untuk penyandang disabilitas itu harusnya seperti apa gitu ya. Mungkin bisa mendalami sedikit dari temuan-temuan atau yang sudah dilakukan risetnya oleh Inovasi. Dan kemudian dari Bu Budhis juga tentang pendalaman interseksionalitas dari studi ini. Bu Rasita mungkin 3 menit begitu, silakan.
Baik, saya coba ya Mas Lukman. Terima kasih atas input ya. Saya lebih melihat sebagai input dari Pak Tolha dan juga Mbak Budhis untuk studi yang mungkin lebih mendalam lagi. Jadi memang tadi kalau Pak Tolha ingin mendapatkan masukan dari evidence yang bisa membantu untuk memikirkan seperti apa sih kompetensi yang akan diharapkan dari anak-anak dengan penyandang disabilitas, dan mungkin nanti kaitannya implikasi dari ketika itu ditetapkan lalu seperti apa yang harus dilakukan. Dan jadi pada saat ini kami belum punya jawabannya, tapi ini kami anggap sebagai masukan untuk memikirkan iya ya studi apalagi yang lebih bisa dilakukan nantinya untuk membantu di tahap yang lebih operasional. Termasuk juga tadi dari Ibu Budhis, mungkin tadi yang kami paparkan baru tentang kesenjangannya seperti apa. Tapi kenapa faktor yang lebih mendalam mengenai mengapa itu terjadi dan kemudian mungkin ada elemen-elemen lain yang belum dimasukkan tadi seperti suku dan mungkin kita belum tahu juga ya apakah nanti kelompok-kelompok dengan berbasis agama itu juga akan menjadi bagian dari elemen yang perlu diperhatikan. Itu saya rasa kami lebih melihatnya sebagai masukan untuk inovasi, untuk memikirkan kembali evidence apa yang perlu dipikirkan yang mungkin nanti berguna pada tahap operasional. Nah, untuk yang terkait dengan bagaimana kemudian guru bisa mengajar, memang pada prinsipnya yang saat ini didorong juga oleh kementerian adalah pembelajaran yang berbeda ya. Jadi untuk itu guru perlu melakukan semacam identifikasi dulu terhadap apa yang dikuasai oleh siswa dan juga pada kondisi siswa. Terkait dengan disabilitas, sebenarnya inovasi juga mendukung Kemendikbudristek dalam pengembangan instrumen untuk bagi guru ya, sebenarnya bagi guru untuk bisa melakukan identifikasi mengenai hambatan fungsional dalam pembelajaran. Jadi ini untuk menjadi alternatif dari regulasi yang ada saat ini yang masih menekankan pada penilaian secara medis. Nah, tentunya guru tidak punya kapasitas untuk itu, tetapi dengan instrumen yang kita dorong, yang kita sebut dengan profil belajar siswa ini, nanti harapannya guru bisa, tadi mirip-mirip ya dengan yang disampaikan Bu Lili, karena itu akomodasi atau adaptasi dari instrumen ini juga, tapi kita harapkan ini bisa digunakan nanti secara nasional dan bisa masuk ke dalam sistem di Kemendikbud dan juga sudah semoga nanti juga bisa diadopsi juga oleh Kemenak sehingga nanti instrumen untuk bagi guru untuk bisa mengidentifikasi kesulitan fungsional ini bisa dilakukan oleh guru dan kemudian memang mau tidak mau guru perlu pelatihan ya untuk bisa kemudian ketika sudah mengetahui terutama tadi Pak Tuan juga menyebut bentuknya kan beda-beda begitu ya. Untuk misalnya disleksia misalnya kami juga mendorong dengan salah satu pendekatan inisiatif dengan BookBot begitu ya yang untuk membantu anak-anak dengan penyandang disleksia untuk bisa meningkatkan kemampuan literasinya. Tapi tentu masih banyak lagi yang harus dilakukan di mana inovasi juga masih memiliki keterbatasan. Tapi juga salah satu yang dilakukan oleh inovasi sekarang itu adalah masuk kepada proses review buku ya. Jadi di dalam review buku yang dilakukan oleh Pusbuk, ini inovasi memberikan masukan melalui konsultan-konsultan kami yang memang memiliki keahlian teknis dari aspek gender dan juga dari disabilitas, di mana salah satunya adalah konsultan kami ini kemudian memiliki disabilitas terkait dengan pendengaran dan kemudian dia memberi masukan gitu. Ada pesan-pesan di buku yang dikembangkan itu yang nggak cocok gitu, tidak cocok dengan perspektif dan pengalaman penyandang disabilitas. Nah, kadang-kadang kalau kita tidak melibatkan langsung, maka perspektif dan pengalaman langsung itu tidak masuk gitu ya di dalam proses-proses atau produk-produk yang sedang kita buat. Contohnya saja begini misalnya dia bilang itu salah kalau di dalam bukunya kemudian menyuruh anak yang punya hambatan untuk pendengaran lalu sarannya adalah disuruh belajar bicara gitu. Itu keliru, itu nggak boleh gitu. Atau misalnya anak yang memiliki hambatan pendengaran itu dianggap kemudian harus duduk di depan gitu. Padahal masalahnya itu berbeda gitu. Nah, perspektif yang seperti ini yang mungkin perlu mendengarkan langsung gitu ya dari teman-teman yang atau kelompok-kelompok atau organisasi yang memang bergerak atau terjun di bidang ini sehingga nanti perspektifnya bisa lebih tepat. Nah, ini juga yang kami dorong ke kementerian. Jadi lebih kepada mungkin saat ini kami belum begitu banyak untuk mampu memberikan masukan terkait dengan pembelajaran di kelas kecuali pada prinsip tadi ya bahwa pembelajaran itu harus berpusat kepada anak, perhatikan betul kebutuhan anak itu seperti apa, pahami kondisinya bagaimana, dan kembangkan kemudian strategi pembelajaran yang sesuai dengan kebutuhan individual anak. Nah, ini yang sebetulnya kolaborasi jadi penting sekali. Ini saya contohkan misalnya Asosiasi Disleksia Indonesia itu juga melakukan training-training kepada guru spesifik tentang disleksia. Jadi bagaimana guru diajari apa itu disleksia, kemudian kalau sudah tahu bagaimana mengidentifikasi anak, apakah anak punya hambatan terkait dengan disleksia atau tidak. Nah, kalau sudah teridentifikasi, lalu bagaimana mengembangkan rencana pembelajarannya yang sesuai dan strategi pembelajaran yang sesuai dengan kondisi itu. Sangat-sangat spesifik dan sangat luas ini cakupannya, sehingga memang sekali lagi mungkin yang bisa saya sampaikan masih garis besar ya, kolaborasi semua pihak itu memang sangat dibutuhkan, dan prinsip-prinsip pembelajaran yang sudah didorong oleh kementerian dalam konteks transformasi pembelajaran yang saat ini disampaikan juga atau dimuat juga di dalam kurikulum Merdeka itu mengarah kepada pendidikan yang inklusif. Satu pesan mungkin yang mungkin saya ingin sampaikan, ini mengutip dari salah satu narasumber juga, yaitu terkait dengan bahwa sebetulnya pendidikan inklusif itu bukan label gitu ya, tapi ini filosofi gitu yang jadi jangan sampai menunggu sekolahnya dilabeli sekolah inklusif baru merasa kemudian memiliki kewajiban atau kemampuan atau mau mengembangkan kemampuan untuk menerima anak-anak dengan kebutuhan khusus, karena ini sebetulnya filosofi yang berlaku untuk semua sekolah. Mungkin itu yang bisa saya sampaikan, Mas. Wah, kok sampai lupa nih. Saya punya disleksi, punya hambatan untuk mengingat. Mas Lukman, maaf Pak.
Nggak
Mas
apa-apa
Lukman.
Bu Rasita, terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih ya,
Tadi
maaf.
sudah siap. Tadi sudah cukup jelas Bapak Ibu, dan saya kira ini diskusi sangat padat sekali. Saya sendiri juga merasa banyak informasi baru, termasuk saya juga banyak belajar dari apa yang disampaikan oleh Bu Rasita terkait dengan hasil-hasil studi, termasuk tadi apa namanya, pengalaman dari NTB, dari Kemenag, dari Kemendikbud, Pak Tolhas, dan juga Bu Budhis dari KAPAL Perempuan. Saya kira saya tidak menyimpulkan, hanya mencatat beberapa poin penting saya kira untuk kita sampaikan. Bahwa pertama, kita sepakat bahwa kondisi apa namanya, ketertinggalan dalam pembelajaran, kehilangan pembelajaran, dan juga kesenjangan itu juga dipengaruhi oleh faktor-faktor kerentanan gitu ya, gender tadi disebutkan, kemudian disabilitas, dan juga kondisi geografis dan lingkungan serta sosial budaya gitu. Dan itu sudah menjadi bukti dari hasil studi tadi, walaupun tadi Pak Tolhas juga sampaikan kalau udah kita gitu ya, itu sudah pasti kira-kira perlu mendapat afirmasi sebetulnya karena kondisi-kondisi tadi. Nah, ini membuktikan bagi saya bahwa kebijakan itu perlu berbasis bukti gitu ya. Jadi dari hasil studi kemudian perlu kemudian direkomendasikan dan juga dilakukan kebijakan-kebijakan, regulasi-regulasi serta penerapan gitu ya. Tadi sudah disebutkan ada roadmap, tapi kemudian tinggal apa yang tadi saya disampaikan oleh Pak Tolhas menjadi penting, konsistensi dari penerapannya dan juga penganggarannya bagaimana ke depan. Jadi ketika sudah ada studi, kemudian ada perencanaan berupa roadmap dan sebagainya, dan bagaimana penerapannya gitu. Nah, yang juga menarik saya kira beberapa rekomendasi dari inovasi tadi. Pertama, Kemendikbud misalnya perlu melakukan memberi perhatian dan pendekatan yang asimetris dan afirmatif gitu ya kalau saya bilang. Jadi ada daerah-daerah tertentu yang mungkin berbeda dengan daerah lain, sehingga intervensinya tentu dan kebijakan yang perlu diberikan juga berbeda. Kemudian Pemda sendiri perlu memiliki dukungan gitu ya, memberikan dukungan berupa regulasi, dan terpenting juga pendataan, karena kalau nggak tahu ada di mana dan kondisinya seperti apa, pemetaannya itu juga menjadi penting untuk pendataan tadi dan menjadi perencanaan di daerah, dan juga intervensinya seperti apa. Dan di sekolah yang tidak kalah penting, Bapak Ibu guru yang hadir di sini, seperti tadi kata Bu Rasita, tidak perlu menunggu label sekolah inklusif untuk melaksanakan pendidikan yang sesuai untuk peserta didik, tetapi lakukanlah asesmen diagnostik gitu ya, untuk melihat kondisi siswa, memahami kemampuan mereka dan memahami hambatan-hambatan yang mungkin dialami, dan baru kemudian lakukan pembelajaran berdiferensiasi gitu ya. Akhir kata saya perlu kembali membacakan satu pantun yang sebenarnya dibuatkan oleh panitia ini karena saya tidak jago pantun. Sambal belacan, sambal terasi, enak dimakan bersama teman. Melalui pengajaran terdiferensiasi, kita atasi kesenjangan pembelajaran. Satu lagi Bapak Ibu, buah nangka, buah durian, durian tembaga dari Sumatera. Mari bersama kita wujudkan pendidikan setara untuk semua siswa. Terima kasih banyak, mohon maaf belepotan. Kita tepuk tangan semua untuk para narasumber kita hari ini, Bu Rasita, Bu Lili, kemudian para penanggap, Bu Mike, kemudian Bu Budhis, Pak Tolhas, serta Bu Sadiah. Dan Bapak Ibu peserta webinar hari ini, semoga semua sehat, semua usaha kita untuk mewujudkan pendidikan Indonesia yang lebih baik semuanya lancar. Demikian dari saya, mohon maaf apabila ada kekurangan dan kekeliruan dari kami. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Saya kembalikan
kasih.
kepada
Terima
Bu
kasih
Lydia.
Bu Lili dan
Bu
teman-teman
Bu
semua.
Rasita, ternyata saya nggak dikirimin backgroundnya beda sendiri.
Wah, maaf Bu.
Silakan Bu Lydia.
Baik,
Izin mute
terima
ya Bapak dan
kasih.
Ibu.
Terima kasih atas kehadiran semuanya. Semoga bermanfaat. Sebelum saya tutup ruang Zoom, saya akan pasang di layar acara forum kajian pembangunan berikutnya. Selamat siang, selamat makan siang semua.
Terima
Selamat
kasih Mbak
siang,
Lili.
terima